Chapter 811. Qin Yining had been suppressing his anger and resentment for many days. After hearing this group of people slandering and insulting him, he could no longer hold back. Danger? Under the Emperor's foot, there are people coming to our door. Do you think I'm afraid of them? Send someone to inform the 5 cities warden's office that there are people here who want to rob our house. The rest of you, stay here and guard the inner residence. The rest of you, follow me out. Qin Yining's eyes were unprecedentedly cold. I want to see what these people can do first. Second Master and Third Master had been sullen for so many days and were already furious. At this moment, they could not care about anything else. They turned around and went to find people. One of them picked up a broom, and the other found a bolt. You called people to come to our door, but you don't even dare to fight back. If Big Brother knows, won't he be angered to death? Yes, beat those bastards who make irresponsible remarks to death. Family Qin's people were furious. The servants who had received Family Qin's kindness also took out their weapons. Some found axes and fire sticks, while others went to the kitchen to find kitchen knives and wok for cooking. The guards were even neatly holding their mei cudgels and lined up in front of the door, ready for battle. The door was slowly pushed open. The shouting outside was still rampant. However, when they saw that Family Qin actually dared to open the door, the clamoring crowd fell silent for a moment. Qin Yining slowly walked forward and said with a dark face, spreading rumors and causing trouble here, "Aren't you afraid that Shuntian Prefecture will not agree?" "Hey!" The leading official spat at Qin Yining. "None of the women who betray the country are good people." "That's right. After all, he's not one of us. He came from the south and has bad intentions. Didn't he say that he was the teacher of the fallen emperor of the Yin dynasty? Who knows if he has the intention to restore the dynasty? Maybe it's Qin Meng who secretly wants to help the Yin dynasty restore the dynasty. How cruel and unscrupulous. He deserves to die for failing to live up to your Majesty's grace." Qin Yining's expression gradually calmed down. However, those who were familiar with her could see that she was on the verge of exploding with anger. Since she returned to the Qin's mansion, she had been sharpened by reality. It had been a long time since she looked at people with such a beastly and aggressive look. But now, she looked at the group of people who were shouting and cursing in front of her. It was as if she was looking at a group of bastards waiting to be torn to pieces. "May I ask, sir, what is your name?" "Qin Yining." "Since I'm the imperial censor, I can't ignore Qin Meng's betrayal of the country. I must reveal his true colors to the world so that I can live up to his Majesty's grace. So it's official, Dai. I've heard so much about you." Qin Yining sneered. "Do you have a harmonious relationship with your 13 concubines? Also, the 2 mistresses you have outside went to Jadestone shop to fight for the same set of ruby stone noodles. Didn't they meet your wife? Later, you spent a lot of money to buy a set of ruby stone noodles for the 3 of them. You really have a tender heart for the fairer sex. You're talking nonsense." Dai Lin was furious. His face flushed red as he said, "When did I have 13 concubines? When did I have a mistress? I'm an honest and upright official. Where did I get the money to buy 3 sets of ruby stone noodles? Don't you dare speak nonsense to slander my reputation." "Oh, isn't that so? But the madams and young misses in the upper-class circle have all spread it. This king's consort also heard it by chance. Could it be that it's not true? You ignorant woman. You easily believe in rumors and still dare to talk about it. It's simply ridiculous." Dai Lin fiercely flung his sleeves. "Yes, ridiculous." Qin Yining's long eyebrows furrowed as he angrily rebuked. "You're speaking irresponsibly and slandering my father's reputation. Could it be that you're not listening to rumors and slandering him easily? Did you become a spirit behind people's backs? Or did you learn to see and hear things from 1,000 miles away? Your Majesty didn't investigate this matter, but you saw it with your own eyes? You're saying that my father sent the silver used to reward the army to the Tatars? Just based on the fact that your upper lip touched your lower lip, everyone should believe you. You still have the nerve to be an imperial censor with this kind of character. Are you worthy of being your Majesty's mouthpiece? You don't cultivate yourself You don't have moral integrity. You're a disgrace to your majesty's salary. You're an imperial censor who listens to rumors like the rain. Even I feel embarrassed for you." Qin Yining's harsh reprimand made Dai Lin's face and ears turn red. His finger that was pointing at Qin Yining was trembling. Qin Yining looked at the commoners who had stopped to watch the commotion. His nose turned sour and tears fell from his eyes. "Fellow villagers and commoners, when my father was alive, he was an official of the Ministry of Rights and was your majesty's trusted official. Your majesty entrusted him with an important task, but my father was harmed by scoundrels and lost his life for the sake of the country. Although our family is sad, we know that this was for the sake of the Zhou and the commoners. But today, someone has come to slander us." Her slender finger pointed at Dai Lin. "This person doesn't cultivate personal integrity. He has a bad character for everyone. He has taken bribes, perverted the law, formed cliques for personal gain, and accepted bribes. He's just a lowly imperial censor, but his family is so wealthy that we don't even know where the money came from. This kind of person actually dares to twist the truth and bully our family of old and weak women and children when my father's body is still cold." Qin Yining's tears fell like raindrops on a pear blossom. She was sobbing so hard that she couldn't speak. The commoners had been watching the commotion for a long time. When they heard this group of people scolding Lord Qin, they felt that what Lord Qin did was wrong, so they also scolded him. Now that the family's doors were wide open, the whole family was dressed in white and white. Their faces were all haggard, and the delicate beauty was crying like raindrops on a pear blossom. Every word she said was exceptionally righteous. Everyone who was certain that Qin Huayuan's character was wrong couldn't help but be shaken. Dai Lin saw this and roared, "Shut up. Don't listen to this woman's nonsense. She's slandering us." A woman in the crowd with a basket of vegetables spat out, "Pay. Whatever you say is the truth, but when others say something about you, they're slandering you. Who do you think you are?" Her voice wasn't too loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. The woman seemed to feel that it wasn't good for her to speak up, so after she finished speaking, she spat out and quickly walked away. However, this sentence, along with what Qin Yining had said, caused everyone to have second thoughts. Dai Lin was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. Originally, he had listened to the Chiu family's orders to do this easy task and was secretly delighted in his heart. But now, he found that his plan had been exposed by this woman in front of everyone. Dai Lin couldn't take it anymore and roared, "You're a traitor, and you're saying that your entire family is a traitor. Men, charge in and smash Qin Meng's mourning hall." "Yes," the men behind him responded, and were about to charge in aggressively. "Let's see who dares to touch my father's mourning hall." Qin Yining grabbed the axe from the sturdy woman next to her and swung it towards Dai Lin's body. Chapter 812. No matter what, Dai Lin was still an official of the court. Most of the people he interacted with were people of the same social class. Even the madam's social interactions were mostly gentle and pleasant young ladies from respectable families. Who would have thought that a Wang Fei, a young lady from a respectable family, would chop people with an axe like a ruffian? Dai Lin screamed in fright and retreated in a panic. The axe fell right in front of his eyes and landed heavily on the ground, making a dang sound. You want to kill someone? Slandering my father. I'd rather pay with my life for it today." Qin Yining chopped down with the axe again. "Quick, catch her! Catch her!" Dai Lin ran. Qin Yining chased after him and hacked at him. The surrounding people were already scared stiff. They were all dumbfounded. After a while, the guards at Dai Lin reacted and reached out to stop them. How could the family Qin people let Qin Yining suffer? Second Old Master and Third Old Master rushed forward with their men. However, they all understood that this was the time to show weakness. Because from the moment Qin Yining started, he wanted to make a big fuss and let everyone see the grievances that the family Qin people had suffered. If Li Qiqian didn't care about people saying behind his back that he treated his officials harshly, he could continue to do nothing. "Stop! Stop! At the foot of the emperor, are you planning to search the residence with people? Let go of my niece." with second master and third master signal. The people in front of the door didn't understand, but they didn't hit too hard. Ji-yun's hand was on the soft sword at her waist. If it wasn't for Qin Yining telling her not to attack in a low voice, she would have already jumped forward. At this time, she could only cry in panic with Bing Tang, Xian Yun, and the others, loudly yelling about the grievances and injustice that the family Qin people had suffered. On the family Qin side, they shouted but didn't kill them. Dai Lin's subordinates immediately used all of their skills and actually wanted to barge into the residence. As a result, Qin Yining was so angry that his eyes turned red. He turned around to look at Ji Yun and his brothers from the Qin-Tian alliance. Just as he was about to instruct them, he suddenly heard a loud shout coming from the intersection. Stop! There was a chaotic battle going on here, so who was willing to listen? Qin Yining turned around and saw Ji Ziyu leaping off his horse. He held a horsewhip in his hand and quickly walked over with a group of attendants. Whenever he encountered one of Dai Lin's subordinates, he would ruthlessly whip him. Stop! I told you to stop. Along the way, he whipped 3 or 4 people. Every time he whipped, a painful cry could be heard. The tip of the whip left red marks on their shoulders and faces. Soon, these people were intimidated by Ji Ziyu and the others. They didn't dare to continue attacking. They raised their clubs and retreated behind Dai Lin. They stared at Ji Ziyu as if they were facing a great enemy. When Dai Lin saw that the person was Ji Ziyu, he also stopped moving. The muscles on his face twitched and his heart beat like a drum. Isn't this Marquis Ding Bei? What wind blew you here? Ji Ziyu stood in front of Qin Yining. He turned around and glanced at the family Qin's group of old, weak, and disabled soldiers. Then he saw that Dai Lin had brought along all of the strong men. He slowly patted his hand with the horsewhip and asked casually, What are you doing, HM? The last of him was dragged out and raised in pitch. It made people who heard it tremble all over. Dai Lin was a weak scholar. Naturally, he hadn't seen the biting, cold deterrence that could only be seen on the battlefield. He was so frightened by Ji Ziyu's soft words that his back was covered in sweat. He groaned inwardly and cupped his hands. Marquis Ding Bei, this official is here on behalf of the imperial court. Qin Meng defected to the enemy and committed treason. He deserved to die. This group of family Qin people actually dared to set up a mourning hall. This is the biggest joke in the world. People with that kind of character don't deserve to set up a mourning hall. Qin Yining looked at Dai Lin with a sullen expression. The anger in his heart rose again. Second Old Master, Third Old Master, Qin Han, and the others behind her were so angry that their faces were flushed red. They gripped their different weapons tightly in their hands, ready to charge forward and fight at any time. Ji Ziyu expressionlessly sized up Dai Lin from top to bottom and then from bottom to top. I didn't expect Lord Dai to have such knowledge other than sleeping flowers and sleeping willows. Dai Lin came from the clear stream. Now that he was being humiliated by Ji Ziyu, he was so angry that his face turned the color of pig liver. Ji Ziyu's expression darkened. He only said one word, scram. This time, Dai Lin was really angry. Shut up. As your majesty's beloved official, why are you speaking up for the family of a traitor? Qin Meng gave all the food and money to the Titan. The Dragon Stallion army under Marquis Dingwa's command is in the south. Because Qin Meng can't even get the food and money, not only are you not angry about the appearance of this vermin in the imperial court, you are even reaching out to stop him. What kind of logic is this? Logic? Your Majesty hasn't dealt with him yet. What right do you have to stand in front of other people and act like a tyrant? Are you bullying other people because they don't have enough people? I didn't expect Marquis Dingwa to do this. This official will definitely report you to the Emperor. This is the capital. It's not for people like you to point fingers. Oh, I'm like this? Ji Ziyu's horsewhip hung by his side. What am I like? Dai Lin gritted his teeth. Disregarding loyalty and treachery, unable to distinguish right from wrong. Even someone like Marquis Dingwa can't lead an army. Ji Ziyu was already impatient. The veins on his forehead were bulging. He swung his whip, and it landed squarely on Dai Lin's face. Ah! Dai Lin covered his face and fell to the ground. When he saw that his hand was covered in blood, he screamed even more miserably. "Your Majesty hasn't spoken yet. Who do you think you are?" Jiziyu turned around and walked towards Qin Manor. Dai Lin was in so much pain that he couldn't feel his face. He only knew that his face was completely ruined this time. Dezhou had always had a rule. Those who had a disfigured face and body could not enter the imperial court as an official. Jiziyu's whip was equivalent to directly destroying Dai Lin's official career. You wait. I'm going to report you. I'm going to lodge an imperial complaint before His Majesty. Up to you. Dai Lin gritted his teeth and glared at Jiziyu. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get any benefits from this, so he didn't want to stay any longer. He said, "Just you wait." Then, he led the crowd and left in a grandiose manner. The onlookers had seen enough of the commotion. Now that the murderous Jiziyu was here, no one dared to stay any longer and dispersed. Silence was restored in front of Qin Manor. Qin Yining handed the axe to Ji Yun and bowed to Jiziyu. "Thank you for helping us out, Marquis Dinghua." Jiziyu turned sideways to avoid Qin Yining's bow. He said, "I'll light an incense stick for Lord Qin." Qin Yining looked up in surprise and saw Jiziyu's side profile looking at the white lanterns hanging above the Qin Manor's door. "Marquis Dinghua, forgive me for being blunt. Many people don't dare to come to family Qin after hearing the news. Everyone knows what it means to seek benefits and avoid harm. Why should Marquis Dinghua cause trouble for yourself?" Jiziyu said, "It doesn't matter. I'm not afraid of trouble." Jiziyu walked past Qin Yining and headed straight for Qin Manor. Qin Yining, second Old Master, third Old Master, and the others looked at each other before they followed Jiziyu into the Qin Manor. Chapter 8:13. The people in the inner residence also learned of the situation in front of the Fu. Second Foreign didn't dare to tell Old Madam, as she was afraid that the Old Madam would be agitated again. She could only arrange for her personal servant girl to come out and investigate the situation. Qin Yining walked behind Jiziyu. As soon as they entered the morning hall, the servant girl hurriedly curtsied and came forward to say, "Wang Fei, Second Foreign sent this servant to inquire about the situation on the mountain." Qin Yining looked at Jiziyu's tall back and said in a low voice, "It's all thanks to Duke Ding, who arrived in time and drove the bandits away. Go and report to Second Aunt that everything is fine now." The servant girl clearly sighed in relief and curtsied gratefully to Jiziyu, even though he couldn't see. "Wang Fei, this servant will leave now. Go." Qin Yining watched the servant girl leave before turning around and walking behind Jiziyu. Jiziyu had already taken out incense and lit it. He respectfully offered the incense and knelt beside Chao Yuqing to pay his respects. Chao Yuqing was covered in dirt and was still kneeling dazedly in her original position. She only looked at Jiziyu out of the corner of her eye and nodded when she saw him pay his respects. Jiziyu didn't care about the sloppiness of the person in front of him. After nodding his head in greeting, he went to the side to add a few more pieces of paper. The paper money was licked by the orange flames and quickly turned to ashes. Jiziyu lowered his head and muttered to himself for a moment. He suddenly looked down at Qin Yining and asked, "Can we talk in private?" Qin Yining blinked in confusion and led Jiziyu to a side hall. Ji Yun served hot tea and stood guard outside the door with his head lowered. Jiziyu took a sip from the white porcelain teacup and gently put it down. He lowered his eyes and pondered for a moment. Finally, a trace of unconcealable disappointment appeared on his jade-like handsome face. "I didn't take good care of your father." Qin Yining looked at Jiziyu and shook his head. "This has nothing to do with you. Why do you have to take the blame?" Jiziyu furrowed his brows and said, "After all, my Dragon Legion Corps is stationed in the north. If I had been more careful and ordered my men to receive the reward army earlier, perhaps nothing would have happened to Lord Qin. Moreover, being in the imperial court and interacting with your majesty all day long, I already had some premonitions about some things, but I didn't do anything." This was almost a confession in front of Qin Yining. He also suspected Li Qitian. Qin Yining took a deep breath and squeezed out an ugly smile. "It's not your fault. What can I do when I'm at their mercy?" Perhaps it was because she had experienced too much in the past few days, but in the face of her family who relied on her, she had no one to talk to. At this moment, facing Jiziyu, Qin Yining couldn't help but pour out some of the things that had been bothering her. My father's death was an accident. No one can be blamed. After all, no one is a god, and no one can predict the future. Duke Ding really doesn't need to blame yourself. If you want to blame yourself, then wouldn't Wang Yi and I, who were involved in this situation, blame ourselves even more? If my father had really sacrificed his life for the country, although I wouldn't be able to bear it and my heart would ache, I wouldn't hate anyone. But now, everyone is waiting for a statement, but it hasn't come yet. No one who was close to my father in the past dared to visit him. Instead, some of the peddlers who used to do business with my family Qin even had the heart to kowtow from afar. My father wasn't an evil person. On the contrary, he cared about the people and did everything conscientiously. His biggest mistake was that he shouldn't have found me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Qin Yining lowered her head. The tears that had dried up over the past few days gushed out once again. Hot tears rolled down from her red and swollen eyes, piercing them and making them hurt. Jiziyu shook his head and sighed. Things have already come to this, and there's no point in blaming yourself. However, please believe me, Lord Qin's death wasn't done by the Dragon Stallion army. I didn't know about this beforehand, and my subordinates definitely wouldn't do such a thing. Qin Yining wiped her tears with her sleeve, sniffed, and looked up at Jiziyu. His handsome face was still the same, and his eyes were sincere. After the incident in the underground palace, when Jiziyu insisted on saving Pang Xiao, Qin Yining no longer doubted him. Seeing him so serious, she naturally nodded. I believe you. Jiziyu heaved a sigh of relief. Although it's not convenient for me to come and burn incense for Lord Qin, I've already arranged for people to secretly investigate in the north. No matter what the truth is, you have to see it with your own eyes before you believe it. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. You mean? Jiziyu smiled. I didn't say anything. I just feel that if you don't see it with your own eyes and hear it with your own eyes, it's too rash to just listen to someone else's side of the story. Jishi isn't home, so don't worry. I'll take care of this in secret. Qin Yining was overjoyed. She stood up and bowed to Jiziyu. I'm really grateful for Duke Ding's timely help. Jiziyu shook his head and hurriedly stood up to avoid her bow. Don't be like this. It's just a small matter. It's not convenient for me to come over these past few days, and instead, someone took advantage of this opportunity. I feel really uneasy. No, you're right not to come. There's so many eyes on the family Qin now. You've helped the family Qin a great deal this time. In the future, who knows how many people will gossip behind your back. I'm just afraid that I'll implicate you. Jiziyu gradually regained his expressionless face. He shook his head indifferently and said, It doesn't matter. How will I be implicated? Rough people like us in the army have always acted like this. You don't have to worry. This carefree attitude was very similar to Pang Xiao's. Qin Yining felt disappointed, but she once again thanked Jiziyu politely. After all, they were a single man and a single woman. Jiziyu couldn't sit for too long. He said what he wanted to say and stood up to leave. Qin Yining, second old master, and third old master saw him out of the family Qin gate. Second old master said in a low voice, Sister E, why did Duke Ding come? These days, no one dared to come to the family Qin to offer their condolences. Not only was Duke Ding the first, but he also stood up for the people from the family Qin at the gate. This matter has been blown up. It will definitely spread to your Majesty's ears soon. It's hard to guarantee that Duke Ding won't be angry. Duke Ding's actions were really suspicious. Qin Yining comforted her. It's okay. He doesn't mean any harm. Second old master and third old master looked at each other. Although they were confused, they still believed in Qin Yining's judgment. Right at this moment, Chao Yuqing, who had been kneeling stiffly for a long time, finally stood up slowly and looked at Qin Yining. Qin Yining hurried forward and held Chao Yuqing's arm, saying, Aunt Chao, I'll accompany you to freshen up, have some food, and then have a good rest, okay? You must be very tired to rush back here. Chao Yuqing looked down at her dirty and messy clothes and nodded blankly. Qin Yining said something to second old master and third old master, then took Ji Yun and the others to help Chao Yuqing change clothes and wash up. Seeing Chao Yuqing lowering her eyes to count the rice grains, Qin Yining took the serving chopsticks and picked up food for her. "Aunt Chao, you have to take care of your body. Otherwise, won't you hurt your family and delight your enemies? Only when you're healthy can you do more things. If something bad happens to you, my father won't be happy." Chao Yuqing had lost a lot of weight. There was no expression on her palm-sized face. She stared blankly at the rice in the bowl. After a long time, she suddenly raised her head and looked at Qin Yining. "You're right." Her voice was hoarse, but there was a sense of resolution in her voice. "Only when I'm healthy can I do more things." She picked up the bowl and stuffed rice in her mouth. However, her tears refused to stop. Big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Qin Yining felt very sad and silently cried with her. After Chao Yuqing finished eating, she said, "We received the news at your maternal grandmother's house and hurried back. After discussion, we left Zhao Ji and Han Ji at your maternal grandmother's house. Your maternal aunt will take care of them for the time being. Your mother and old Madame Ma will be escorted back in a carriage. I traveled day and night on a horse, so it was faster." Qin Yining nodded. Although he felt it was a pity that the Sun clan didn't bring the two children back, he thought about it. It was dangerous here. The children would be safer at maternal grandmother's house. He sighed in relief. After comforting Chao Yuqing, Qin Yining left a quiet environment for Chao Yuqing to rest. Qin Yining kept watch in front of the coffin as usual. At 9 o'clock, Qin Han and Qin Yu persuaded Qin Yining to go back and rest. The next morning, Qin Yining had just gotten up when he saw Bing Tang and Jian walk in with strange expressions. "Wang Fei, what's the matter?" "Wang Fei, something has happened outside." Qin Yining's expression changed. He hurriedly got up and asked, "What happened?" Seeing Qin Yining's expression change, Bing Tang hurriedly said, "It's not at home. It's this servant's fault for not telling you clearly. It's outside." Only then did Qin Yining let out a long sigh of relief. Ji Yun said, "Early this morning, there was a rumor that a family in the southern part of the city was attacked by bandits and was massacred in one night. Such a thing hasn't happened in the capital for many years. This servant felt that it was too sudden, so I went to investigate. In the end, I found that the family that was massacred was surnamed Dai." Qin Yining's hand that was buttoning his shirt paused. "Dai? Was it yesterday?" Ji Yun nodded solemnly. "Yes. In the entire Dai residence, except for women, children, and boys under the age of 14, all adult males, regardless of whether they were masters or servants, were killed. This matter has already alarmed Shantian Prefecture. The smell of blood outside the Dai residence is so strong that it's pungent even if one doesn't go near it." Qin Yining was extremely shocked. Dai Lin was indeed despicable, but her family was suddenly massacred. Even if she hated Dai Lin, she couldn't feel happy because of this. After all, they were a family, including the servants. Bing Tang also had a lingering fear. The killer's methods were too neat. "I heard that everyone's throats were slit. Blood splattered all over the house. All the surviving women and men under 14 years of age were now scared out of their wits. That bloody scene would be a nightmare for anyone who saw it for the rest of their lives." Qin Yining pursed his lips and said thoughtfully, "It's fine if we know about this matter. Because our family just had a conflict with Dai Lin yesterday, their family was quickly massacred. There will definitely be people coming to investigate. When the time comes, we just have to tell them the truth. However, we are not allowed to spread this matter in the residence. At this time, it's better to avoid unnecessary trouble." "Yes." Bing Tang and Ji Yun nodded cautiously. "We will also tell Qiu Lu and the others later." Chapter 814. Qin Yining stood in front of Chao Yuqing's door. She raised her hand and hesitated for a long time, but didn't put it down. This matter was originally her guess and suspicion, so there was no reason for her to ask Chao Yuqing about it now. Yes, Chao Yuqing had the motive and ability to do so. but who said that she had the motive and ability to do so? Why don't you come in? At this moment, Chao Yuqing's hoarse voice sounded from behind the door. With a creak, the grill door was pushed open. Chao Yuqing was wearing a plain white robe and a white silk flower in her hair. She stood in front of the door expressionlessly and looked at Qin Yining with a pair of charming eyes. Aunt Chao. Qin Yining was slightly embarrassed, but Chao Yuqing was a smart person and couldn't be fooled. Qin Yining followed Chao Yuqing into the room and left the servant girls outside. Then she said in a low voice, "I heard that something happened to the Dai family." Chao Yuqing placed a cup of hot tea next to Qin Yining's hand and calmly sat down across from her. "I was the one who did that to the Dai family." Qin Yining looked at Chao Yuqing's slightly worried face and sighed. Yes. Chao Yuqing was slightly surprised. Didn't Qin Yining come here to question her? Why didn't you ask me? Why didn't you scold me for being cold-blooded and heartless? Chao Yuqing stared straight at Qin Yining. Her red and swollen eyes were bloodshot again, and tears welled up in her eyes. That person deserves to die. That person who slandered Qin Meng behind his back deserves to die. Qin Yining's lips moved. In the end, there are still innocent people. Innocent? Chao Yuqing laughed mockingly. Tears fell from the corners of her eyes. I even spared the old and young in their family. But what about Qin Meng? Who would consider how innocent Qin Meng is? He's an honest person and hasn't done anything bad in his life. Who would pity him? Chao Yuqing suddenly stood up and grabbed her hair painfully. I've known Qin Meng for so many years, and I know that he is the most intelligent and magnanimous man in the world. He didn't want me to become a tool for procreation, and he didn't want me to hurt your mother in the inner residence and change myself after giving me hope. That was why he told me the truth from the start. To this day, I'm still in love with him. I can give up my life for him, but I'm willing to do so. Qin Meng has never lied to me. He has never thought of using his tenderness to tie me down. Chao Yuqing looked at Qin Yining with her red and swollen eyes. Your father was a good man. He had a clear conscience. Wasn't he innocent when he was killed? Qin Yining's tears streamed down his face. The hatred in her heart had never been any less than Chao Yuqing's. Aunt Chao, if I had your skills, I might have taken advantage of the night to kill Dai Lin. I understand how you feel. However, she was not as ruthless as Chao Yuqing. Chao Yuqing had seen a lot of bloodshed. She was like a sharp knife. If she was in the hands of a decent person, she would be able to do decent things, just like Qin Huaiyuan. But now Qin Huaiyuan was gone, and the person who held the knife was gone. This sharp knife was full of resentment. Qin Yining would not be surprised if she did anything bloody. Qin Yining wanted to persuade Chao Yuqing, but she knew that no one could persuade Chao Yuqing in her current state. Aunt Chao, you should calm down for the next few days. You don't look well. You need to take care of yourself. As for my father's matter, let's talk about it after the funeral. Chao Yuqing looked at Qin Yining. After making sure that she was not comforting her temporarily, she slowly nodded. Okay. Qin Yining and Chao Yuqing ate some rice porridge together. Then, they went to the morning hall in the front yard. They did not see second master and third master. After asking the servant girls, they found out that people from Shuntian Manor had come and were questioning them in the front hall. They said that something happened to the Dai family last night, so people from Shuntian Manor came to our house to ask about it. After all, the incident in front of Qin Manor yesterday was very big. If Jiziyu had not arrived in time, no one knew what would have happened. Qin Yining had used her axe on the spot. Wang Fei, will Shuntian Manor suspect our family? Bing Tang was a bit worried. It's fine. Even if they ask me, I will speak frankly. Qin Yining sneered. Dai Lin has offended many people. If someone comes to ask, I will ask them back. Whose family is in the middle of a funeral? If a slut like Dai Lin came to cause trouble and slandered the deceased with filthy words, whose family wouldn't be angry? Being suspected doesn't mean I did it. Bing Tang and the others nodded and did not continue this topic. They did not know what second master and third master said, but the people from Shuntian Manor did not come to ask the womenfolk in the manor. However, in the afternoon, Qin Yining received another piece of news that shocked the entire court. Your Majesty has taken away Duke Ding's tiger tally. Now, Duke Ding only has the title of nobility and does not care about court matters. Qin Yining looked at Ji Yun in shock. Is what you said true? Of course it's true. The news has already spread. After speaking, Ji Yun bowed and retreated. She left the side hall to the masters and brought people to carefully guard the door. Qin Yining looked at second master and third master beside him. Things actually turn out like this. Third master fiercely slammed the table. It's ridiculous. A meritorious official like Duke Ding was stripped of his power just because he came to offer incense to eldest brother. Isn't this telling everyone that they're not allowed to interact with our family Qin? Second old master said in a low voice. Isn't this even more proof of who sent Dai Lin? Perhaps if nothing happened to Dai Lin's family, Duke Ding would not be here. They could not help but fall silent. Chao Yuqing's eyes narrowed. So, it's very likely that Dai Lin was sent by that person. Qin Meng went, but he didn't even say a word. Even if Qin Meng lost his life, it was not determined whether he died in the line of duty or if he did not do his job well. Such a vague attitude made everyone afraid to step forward. It was not easy for someone with courage to come, but he also vented his anger on them. Chao Yuqing's voice became lower and lower, and the last words seemed to be squeezed out from between her teeth. If he didn't send people to the north to reward the army, he wouldn't have died like this. Looking at his behavior now, it's very likely that Qin Meng was... And Chao. Qin Yining stopped Chao Yuqing's words. She looked around, indicating that Chao Yuqing had ears on the walls. Chao Yuqing took a few deep breaths to suppress the injustice in her heart. She said apologetically, I'm sorry. Qin Yining shook her head. It seemed that Li Qitian already had victory in his hands. What was the situation in the south? Although she could get news from the south, the mountains were high and the road was long. It would take a long time for the news to reach her. Perhaps Li Qitian had a faster and more direct way to get news from various places. So, he was certain that Pang Xiao would not make a move, so he could rest assured and boldly seize Ji Ziyu's military power. Otherwise, if he needed someone at the last minute, would he be so thick-skinned as to give orders? Ji Ziyu was not the kind of person who could be dismissed at will, even if he obeyed the order and was loyal to Li Qitian. With Li Qitian's suspicious nature, wouldn't he be suspicious? If that's the case, our family's matter will implicate Duke Ding. Second master sighed. I've already begged my superiors to resign. My colleagues all know that I'm going to send Ling Huixiang, but no one said anything. Third master said, now that we have Duke Ding as an example, who dares to say a word? Whoever treats our family well will suffer together. Chao Yuqing's hands were tightly clenched, and her eyes were cold. Qin Yining saw that her expression was not right, so he grabbed her hand. Chao Yuqing's hand was very cold, and her fingertips were trembling for some reason. Qin Yining tightened his grip and looked at Chao Yuqing warningly. Chao Yuqing was immersed in hatred and finally pulled out of her emotions. She remembered what Qin Yining had said just now. Everything had to be done first, and then the funeral. Whatever she wanted to do, she needed to think at length in the future. After all, Chao Yuqing did not have the confidence to sneak into the palace and kill Li Qitian under heavy guard. She also did not have the confidence to cause trouble for the family Qin. Wang Fei, second master, third master. Suddenly, a maidservant's slightly anxious voice came from the courtyard. Madam is back. She rushed to the morning hall. Eldest master asked this servant to tell you that first madam's situation seems very bad. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. He patted Chao Yuqing's hand comfortingly and hurried to the morning hall. At this time, inside palace, Li Helan was holding the Empress Dowager's hand and crying. Imperial Mother, Prince Consort was just kind-hearted. When he passed by the family Qin, he saw that someone was making trouble in front of their door, so he interrupted. How is he guilty? In any case, we are family. Imperial Brother took Prince Consort's tiger tally without any care. How can the people outside talk about this? How will they look at our family? Li Helan covered her face and sobbed. Right now, she only wanted to curry favor with Ji Ziyu. The more time passed, the more she could not bear to part with Ji Ziyu's handsome face and meritorious deeds. Jiziyu was in trouble, but he did not come to her to plead. Li Helan naturally would not wait for Jiziyu to speak first. She came to the Empress Dowager first. If she succeeded in this matter, Jiziyu would at least remember her kindness, right? Jiziyu was so proud. Perhaps it was because he became the prince consort, but he did not want others to think that he was relying on his status as the prince consort. Now that this happened, wasn't this a chance for her to show off? Thinking of this, Li Helan cried even more sadly. The Empress Dowager rubbed her temples and said tiredly, "Can you stop making trouble for Aijia? How is this making trouble? A son-in-law is half a son. What did Jilan do wrong? Muhu is speaking up for Jilan, not only for your daughter, but also for Imperial Brother. Right now, who in the court doesn't know that Jilan can lead troops and fight? In the future, Imperial Brother might need Jilan. Just use him when he needs it. Do you think Jilan will disobey the Imperial Edict?" The Empress Dowager pushed away Li Helan's hand that was holding on to her and said, "Aijia does not want to get involved in these matters anymore. You're Aijia's daughter. Can't you think for Aijia? Muhu, please dote on your daughter. Your daughter wants to go directly to Imperial Brother, but Imperial Brother is not willing to see me. Even if he sees me, Imperial Brother will not listen to your daughter. Your words are more important." The Empress Dowager sneered. "What weight can Aijia's words have now? You can't even protect your own niece, let alone the prince consort. You should give up on this idea." Indeed, as soon as the Empress Dowager finished speaking, Li Qitian's low voice sounded from the door. Chapter 8:15. Li Qitian was dressed in an ochre brocade robe. His hair was tied up high and secured with a net. He strode in with his hands clasped behind his back. "Greetings, Imperial Brother." Li Helan bowed in a somewhat flustered manner. Li Qitian didn't even look at her. He cupped his hands towards the Empress Dowager and said, "Imperial Mother." The Empress Dowager didn't care about Li Qitian's careless greeting. In fact, ever since the poisonous swallow's nest incident, Li Qitian had become more and more distant from her. He didn't even seem to be willing to give her the honor that the Empress Dowager should have. This made the Empress Dowager, who valued status and power, very nervous. "The Emperor is here. Quickly sit down. It's starting to get hot outside, but the Emperor still comes frequently. This makes Aijia's heart ache." The Empress Dowager affectionately held Li Qitian's hand and patted it. Li Qitian smiled and took back his hand without leaving a trace. He took the hot tea that the head palace maid brought over and casually said, "What? Lonar feels sorry for the Emperor's son-in-law." Li Helan's tears hadn't dried yet. Her heart was filled with unwillingness and nervousness. She pondered for a moment before acting like a spoiled child. "Imperial Brother, Lana doesn't only feel sorry for the Emperor's son-in-law. Lana is also doing this for Imperial Brother." The Emperor's son-in-law. Li Qitian waved his hand and interrupted Li Helan's words. "Jean heard your words when I was outside. You're saying that Jilan can lead troops and Jean still needs him in the future?" Yes. But didn't Imperial Mother say that we can use him whenever we need him? Could it be that Jilan can disobey the Imperial decree?" Li Qitian narrowed his eyes and leaned closer to Li Helan. "Could it be that the Emperor's son-in-law said something to you? Is he still dissatisfied?" Li Helan's heart skipped a beat. She repeatedly shook her head. No, there's no such thing. Chenmei was just acting on her own initiative. Chenmei hasn't even seen Prince Consort's face yet. Moreover, Prince Consort is like a block of wood. He's not someone who can have so many thoughts. Prince Consort will definitely listen to Imperial Brother's orders. It was Chenmei who wanted to get closer to Prince Consort. Prince Consort has been ignoring me all this time. When she said the last sentence, Li Helan's voice was mixed with infinite grievance. The Empress Dowager immediately asked, "Prince Consort ignored you? Is he still unwilling to see you?" "That's right." Li Helan sobbed and said, "Daughter asked someone to invite him every 2 days, but he always said that he was busy with work. Otherwise, he would say that he was not in the mansion. I can't always ask people to invite him. Otherwise, the old nannies will say that I'm asking him too frequently, as if I'm in a hurry." Li Helan felt really wronged. She stomped her feet and twisted her waist as she said, That's a dead blockhead. Do you think you'll lose a piece of meat if you treat me nicely? He's always so cold. What am I supposed to do? The Empress Dowager's heart ached for her daughter. When she thought of Ji Ziyu's incomparably handsome yet cold appearance, she felt both love and anger. That Ji Lan is really something. Emperor, you should at least speak up for your sister when you go back. How can there be overnight hatred between husband and wife? Why is it that Ji Lan has made up her mind not to be with our Lan? Li Qiqian put down the teacup and said with a chuckle, ordinary husband and wife naturally don't have overnight hatred. But what did Lan do? Li Helan's face turned red. The Empress Dowager thought of Li Helan's group of male companions, and her expression became a bit awkward. Li Qiqian didn't intend to give Li Helan any face this time, and said bluntly, Jilan isn't the kind of spineless person you raise who will wag her tail at you just because you give her some benefits. Only Jilan has a clear mind. If she met Pang Zhishi, that scoundrel, if someone dared to make him a cuckold, and even found a group of people to enjoy the good relationship with, do you believe that Pang Zhishi will kill you? Li Helan's face became hotter and hotter. She stammered, didn't Lan dismiss everyone? Huh. Li Qiqian only snorted and then said seriously, how you want to curry favor with the prince consort is your own business. Doing it behind closed doors can be considered the pleasure of your boudoir. But remember, it's up to me to decide who to use and who not to use. You're all women, so you have to remember the consequences of interfering with politics in the harem. Don't tell me you want to rely on your status as relatives to decide who to use. Li Helan's face turned pale with fright. The Empress Dowager's heart was pierced by the words status as relatives. Ijia is your mother. That's right. The corners of Li Qiqian's lips curled up lazily. She's a mother who would poison my legitimate son. Li Helan suddenly raised her head to look at the Empress Dowager and then looked at Li Qiqian. For a moment, she didn't know how to console her. The Empress Dowager was like a puppet whose strings had been pulled out. She slumped against the large pillow behind her. At this moment, she clearly realized that she had lost the ability to compete with the Empress. In the past, her biggest reliance was the Emperor's filial piety. But now, she finally lost it. The Empress Dowager's tears flowed down her face. Every wrinkle on her face was filled with regret. If she hadn't been so confident, how could things have turned out like this? In the end, things didn't work out. The Qin clan wasn't defeated. The Empress didn't gain the upper hand, and even the Emperor's respect and filial piety were lost. Li Qiqian didn't have the patience to deal with the Empress Dowager and Li Helan's tears. She stood up and said, I still have some memorials to approve. Cupping her hands, Li Qiqian strode out of Xian Palace. Li Helan and the Empress Dowager looked at each other speechlessly. Jia lowered her head in disappointment. Qin's mansion. The Sun clan cried desperately. In the end, they couldn't take it anymore. They fainted and developed a high fever. Qin Yining hurriedly settled them into the inner residence and asked Bing Tang to treat them. Wang Fei, this servant sees that Madame's illness is very dangerous. Madame has a high fever, but she doesn't sweat, and she can't take medicine. This situation is really not good. I see that Madame is prepared to die. Qin Yining was so frightened that she was covered in cold sweat. Her hands were cold. What should we do? She looked dazedly at the Sun clan, lying on her back with pale lips. Her mind was in chaos, and she didn't know what to do. Something has already happened to father. If something happens to mother, Wang Fei, don't worry. This servant will do her best. Madame will get better. Bing Tang regretted saying this to Qin Yining. Qin Yining still hadn't fully recovered from the injuries he had received in the palace. The swelling on his knees had gone down, but he was still sick. Adding on the fact that he had starved for so many days in Xian Palace, he was so thin that his bones could stand. He was even thinner than when they first met. It was as if a gust of wind could blow him away. If he got angry because of this matter and also fell ill, then wouldn't this family be finished? Bing Tang gritted her teeth and said seriously, Wang Fei, don't be afraid. I will discuss it with the doctor. Madame's illness will be fine. Qin Yining nodded and said after a long time, okay. Leaving Bing Tang to treat the Sun clan, Qin Yining went to the front hall to see Madame Ma. At this time, Madame Ma was wearing a white belt and squatting to burn joss paper. The tears on her face hadn't dried yet, and she was crying again. She muttered, "What a sin, what a sin." "Grandmother." Qin Yining squatted down beside Madame Ma. "You have suffered a lot on the way back. Did you encounter any danger on the way?" "Alas." Madame Ma threw the last few joss paper into the brazier, wiped her hands on her skirt, and pulled Qin Yining to a corner. "Tell grandmother, why didn't you build a mourning shed in the prince's mansion? This house doesn't look very big. Won't it be crowded if the whole family lives here? Did your silly mother-in-law bully you again?" Madame Ma's eyes were full of worry and anxiety. She had already guessed it when she was led here by the two servants as soon as she entered the city, but they didn't go back to the prince's mansion. Her family knew her own affairs. Madame Ma had been with the Yao father and daughter for most of her life, so how could she not guess what was on their mind? Qin Yining shook his head and said with a smile, "Grandmother, you think too much. I have already asked Master Zhong to look for a house and happened to find a suitable one, so I moved out. Family Qin is a big family, so it's not good to keep living in the prince's mansion." "Why is it not good? If the whole family lives together, wouldn't it be cheaper for you and Dai Fu to arrange it? If you are separated, the manpower will be separated, and won't the military strength be weakened? It's not a peaceful era now. Things are happening one after another. You're a smart child. If you weren't bullied too badly, why would you move out at this time?" Madame Ma's calloused hand held Qin Yining's slightly cold and slender hand and shook it. She then tenderly touched Qin Yining's cheek. "Look at how thin you are. You're like a piece of paper. You must have suffered and been wronged. Your mother-in-law is evil. Don't worry. Grandmother will teach her a lesson later." Qin Yining had been wronged for so many days. It was not good to tell the family about what happened with her mother-in-law. She also didn't want to act like a resentful wife and throw a tantrum with Pang Xiao, who was thousands of miles away, so she could only hold it in. All kinds of worries weighed down her heart. Every time she thought about these trivial matters in the dead of night, her heart would always feel stifled. Now that Madame Ma had returned and said these words, Qin Yining's pent-up anger was released. When there was no one to love and understand her, and no one to support her, Qin Yining could grit her teeth and be strong. But now her eyes were wet. After a long while, Qin Yining held back her tears. "Grandmother, don't say that. My mother-in-law didn't do anything. Besides, family Qin should be separated. It's indeed not appropriate to build a coffin shed in the prince's mansion." Madame Ma immediately understood when she heard this. "I know, alas. Your mother-in-law was wrong in this matter. We are a family." "What in-laws? What Pang family? You and Dai Fu are married, so the two families are tied together. To put it bluntly, if there are enemies against us, how can we deal with them separately?" Qin Yining wanted to persuade her again, but Madame Ma waved her hand, indicating that she didn't need to say anything more. The two of them held hands and looked at the empty coffin in the morning hall. Madame Ma sighed and wiped her tears. "Alas, I'll go back to the prince's mansion first." "All right. Yes, I'll arrange for someone to escort you back." Madame Ma nodded in agreement. Looking at Qin Yining's thin face and thin body, the anger in her heart surged. She had only been out for a while, but that father and daughter pair had forgotten the most basic manners. Qin Yining sent Madame Ma out of the mansion and got on the carriage. Just as she was about to turn around and return to the mansion, she saw a tall figure standing at the corner of the street. The person was dressed in a light, gray, scholarly robe, and he really looked like a scholar. "Mr. Mu?" Mu Jinghu nodded with a smile and pointed to the alley on the side of the mansion. Chapter 816. By the time Qin Yining reached the courtyard wall, Mu Jinghu had already avoided the two patrolling members of the Qingtian Alliance and was waiting there. "Young Master Mu, when did you come back?" Mu Jinghu walked in front of Qin Yining. Before he answered, he looked at Qin Yining from head to toe and frowned. "Why have you lost so much weight? Pang Zhishi must be worried when he sees you." Qin Yining smiled sadly and didn't know how to answer. She had experienced too much during this period of time. Even when she saw Pang Xiao, she didn't know where to start. Mu Jinghu said, I just entered the city. I should have arrived a long time ago, but I saw old Madam's group on the way. I was worried that something might happen, so I followed behind them and escorted them. As he spoke, he took out a letter and handed it to Qin Yining. Qin Yining's eyes turned red when she saw the words on the letter. She took a deep breath and smiled at Mu Jinghu before opening the letter and taking out the thick stack of letters. Pang Zhao's letter was a long-winded confession of his feelings and detailed what he had done in the south. At the end, he reminded her to take care of herself and protect herself. At the end, he carefully comforted her and ended the letter with the words, "I'll kiss the corner of your lips." Qin Yining's slender fingers couldn't help but touch the corner of her lips. She didn't even realize that because of this letter, her brows, which were tightly knitted all day long, had relaxed. She carefully read what had happened in the south again and suddenly said, "No wonder that person gave me the chance to speak. Now, Wang Yi has established a relationship with the Southern Yan people. Shanshan Sidong number is now busy trading with the merchants of the Southern Yan people. As a result, the people of the Southern Yan people no longer hate and fear Pang Zhishi as they did before. Although they haven't completely recovered the Southern Yan people, their relationship with the new emperor of the Southern Yan people isn't so stiff anymore. The new emperor, you still don't know? After Yuqi Shujia died, the Yuqi Yan ran away. Pang Zhishi left a gap for him to escape back to Dezhou. The people of the Southern Yan hated the Yuqi Yan to the core. Now, they supported Yuqi Shujia's nephew, Yuqi Chuan, as the emperor. Yuqi Chuan was only 14 years old this year, and he listened to the arrangements of the court officials. He wasn't someone who could stand on his own. However, this would make things easier for us. Mu Jinghu was not a person who was good at thinking about the matters of the imperial court. From his tone, one could tell that he had heard Xiu Feishan or Pang Xiao say a lot and memorized it. Qin Yining put the letter away and planned to get rid of it later. If this letter fell into someone else's hands, it could very well become evidence of Pang Zhao's rebellion. This was enough to show how much Pang Xiao trusted Mu Jinghu. "Young Master Mu, what are your plans after returning to the capital?" Pang Zhishi was worried that there would be changes in the capital, so he asked me to come here to protect you. Other than that, there's nothing else. If my martial uncle didn't ask me, I should be able to stay here with you. Qin Yining was overjoyed. "Thank you very much. A lot of things have happened these days, and now that the family is in such a mess, I'm actually worried that something uncontrollable will happen. With you here, I feel much more at ease." Mu Jinghu couldn't help but blush when he was trusted and relied on like this. He scratched the back of his head and said, "We're not outsiders. If you have anything to say, just tell me. If I can't protect you, not to mention Pang Zhishi, even Shanshan will be unhappy with me." Hearing his tone, Qin Yining couldn't help but smile. "How is Mrs. Mu's situation now?" Mu Jinghu smiled. "She's pretty good. Now that she's 5 months pregnant, it's not convenient for her to come out. I didn't bring her along. She's under Pang Zhishi's control, so I can rest assured." "That's good. That means in 5 months, you'll be a father." "Yes." Mu Jinghu's face was flushed with excitement, and his eyes were shining. "If it's a son, I'll ask him to be your son's brother." "That's natural." Qin Yining smiled and nodded. For Mu Jinghu to accompany them and help them so much, it must be a good thing. Thinking of the 2 children, Qin Yining's heart was filled with longing. A 1.5-year-old child should have grown up a lot. He should be able to speak simple words and call them father and mother, right? Unfortunately, reality didn't allow her to accompany the child and participate in the child's growth process. Qin Yining sighed softly. He sorted out his emotions and went to arrange Mu Jinghu's residence. Mu Jinghu wasn't an outsider, and he was very familiar with the Qin family. After looking at the residence, he went to the morning hall to help. Qin Yining went to check on the Sun clan situation. Everything in the family Qin was being carried out in a busy but orderly manner. But at this time, the Chunhui Hall and the prince's residence was in a mess. Yao clan's face was swollen from the slaps, and they whimpered all over the room. "Mother, stop hitting. Stop hitting. All right, you've already taught them a lesson. Don't hurt the child." Yao Chingu came over to protect Yao Clan, but his arm was also slapped a few times by Madame Ma's shoe, and he grimaced in pain. This time, Yao Chingu was really angry. Why are you acting like this when you just came back? Our family hasn't seen each other for so long, and it's time for us to be reunited. Isn't it good for everyone to be happy? It wasn't easy for the residents to be so chaotic, but you have to find trouble for no reason. What's wrong? Are you trying to intimidate me? Madame Ma looked at Yao Chingu's angry face and spat fiercely. Bah, why are you pretending to be a big shot in front of me? If you want to be a big shot, you have to see if what you're doing is something a human should do. Our Dai Fu and family Qin are married, so we're a family. In any case, we have to support each other. To put it bluntly, we're all bound together for good or ill. What about you? What did you do? You drove them away when they were at their most difficult time? Who drove them away? We didn't drive them away at all. It was the Qin clan who was looking for trouble. She felt that it was inauspicious to set up a mourning shed in our residence, so she told their family to move out. How could Yuping and I stop her? Bullshit. Madame Ma spat fiercely again. I know what kind of person Yuping is. You, Yao Chingu, don't even think about hiding the few tricks you have in your stomach from me. If the two of you hadn't discussed and asked Yuping to speak to Lass E wouldn't have taken her family away so eagerly. She even left the guards left behind by the Dai Fu behind. Are the two of you inconsiderate? What time is it now? The Dai Fu is working outside, and that black-eyed man is watching our family closely. Who knows when he'll take us as hostages? In the past, when the Dai Fu went out to fight, we were invited to the palace many times. Now that the Dai Fu has a family and a family, the Dai Fu has such a big family Qin. If any one of them were to get into trouble, it could become a hindrance to the Dai Fu. Yet you chase him out just like that? To put it bluntly, you're not only selfish, but also brainless. Do you think the family Qin is the one who's in trouble? The Dai Fu is the one who's in trouble. Lass E is the one who's sorry. Yao Chingu couldn't help but fall silent after hearing the Yao clan's words. The Yao clan covered their swollen faces and sobbed. You've said so many reasons, but it's all because that bitch of the Qin clan is talking behind our backs again. I knew that she was a wastrel. Madame Ma was so angry that she rolled her arms and slapped him with the sole of her shoe again. Seeing that the Yao clan was hitting him too hard, Yao Chingu stretched out his arm to stop them. However, Madame Ma was a martial artist after all. With a casual wave of her hand, Yao Chingu was pushed to the side, and the Yao clan's face and ears were slapped hard. This time, the Yao clan's ears buzzed, and her vision turned black. After swaying for a while, she finally fell to the ground and didn't get up for a long time. Yao Chingu hurriedly came over to help his daughter. He glared at Madame Ma with dissatisfaction. He wanted to scold her, but he was afraid that Madame Ma would get angry and disregard her family. In the end, he could only nag, "Look at you. Why do you always hit her face or head? What if she becomes stupid after being hit? As their mother, don't you feel sorry for them? It's better if they become stupid. Even if they're stupid, they're at least pure-hearted. Look at your daughter. What kind of person is she? She's just not tempted enough. If there were enough benefits, she would even sell her parents." The Yao clan's ears buzzed, and they finally recovered their hearing. They vaguely heard the Yao clan's words and immediately burst into tears. Yao Chingu helped the Yao clan into the house. Go, go, go. Let's go away. Don't pay attention to your mother. Your mother has cast a curse on them. But she immediately said, "Stop, all of you. Change your clothes and go to the family Qin to help." No, Yao Chingu said, "I advise you to be quiet. You just came back and don't know what happened in the capital. That Dai family was exterminated. Don't tell me it has nothing to do with that Qin guy." Madame Ma was stunned. She really didn't know about this matter. The Yao clan and Yao Chingu told Madame Ma about what they saw outside the family Qin yesterday. That shrew of the Qin clan used an axe on the spot. If Duke Ding hadn't arrived, she might have chopped them up on the spot. That scene scared us so much that we didn't dare to go inside. Yao Chingu shook his head and clicked his tongue. In the end, in just one night, that Dai family was killed except for women, children, and men under the age of 14. The smell of blood was so strong that the neighbors couldn't eat for a few days. At this moment, the family Qin is the biggest suspect. Your good granddaughter-in-law is the first suspect. You still dare to approach the in-laws. Do you want to die? So when you went there yesterday and saw a villain with dozens of people blocking the family Qin's door, you didn't even dare to show your faces and directly shrank your necks and ran away? Madame Ma's back molars creaked. Finally, she pointed at Yao, Chenggu, and the Yao clan. How can I marry such an inhuman thing like you and give birth to such an inhuman daughter? Yao Chenggu was beaten and scolded today. Moreover, there were so many servants in the residence watching. He couldn't maintain his face anymore. He immediately said fiercely, "If you're not satisfied, you can leave. I don't care about you." Chapter 817. Qin Yining naturally had no interest in leaving anyone to inquire about what had happened in the Wangfu. It was only when Jing Zhe and the others discovered that Yao Chenggu and his daughter's faces were swollen that Qin Yining realized that it must have been Madame Ma who did it. It was truly lamentable that husband and wife, mother and daughter, had quarreled like this. Madame Sun had a high fever for an entire night, and it was only at dawn that her condition improved slightly. Qin Yining had long been scared out of his wits by the dangerous situation, so he didn't have the heart to pay attention to the Yao clan. He only instructed Jing Zhe to secretly keep an eye out and not let Madame Ma suffer any losses. After 2 days, the Sun clan situation finally stabilized, and they woke up from their coma. But as soon as they opened their eyes, they couldn't stop crying. Wang Fei, don't worry. Madame's situation has stabilized. As long as she recuperates well, there shouldn't be any major problems. Bing Tang tiredly rubbed his dry eyes, then pulled Qin Yining to the side and continued in a low voice. Wang Fei should also think of a way to comfort Madame. Madame's psychological depression hasn't dissipated. She's too sad. How could I not know? But at this point, there really isn't a foolproof plan. Consoling her was just a matter of lip service. It was easy, but after experiencing this kind of thing, how could it be consoled with just a few words from others? She didn't dare to imagine what would happen if she lost Pang Xiao. Just by looking at Xiao Yuqing and the Sun clan's reactions, this kind of scene was enough to make Qin Yining sleep until dawn. When the Sun clan's health improved and they could come to the coffin every day, more than half of the 49 days had passed. Li Qiqian still didn't stand up to say that Qin Huaiyuan had died in the line of duty. During this period of time, the only statement he made was that Jiziyu had come to help the family Qin and had his tiger tally taken away. As a result, the family Qin's front door was even more deserted. No one dared to take half a step closer for fear of getting into trouble. The current situation couldn't be clearer. Your Majesty's attitude is also very clear. Like we said last time, it's time to leave the capital. Hearing Qin Yining's words, Qin Han and Qin Yu were a bit sad. Although they didn't have deep feelings for the capital, they had experienced many difficulties on the road to the capital. It wasn't easy for their family to establish a foothold in the capital. But now, Qin Huai was far away, and the backbone of the family was gone. Second, Old Master Qin was also disheartened and returned to his hometown. In the beginning, they still hoped that the family Qin would be able to achieve glory again. But now, no one knew that it had fallen. The family Qin, which was once very famous in the Dian dynasty, still stood at a height that ordinary people couldn't reach in 3 lifetimes even after coming to Dezhou, had finally reached the end of its prosperity. Seeing that the two of them were dejected, Third Master couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. Look on the bright side. This is only a temporary measure. If you continue to be greedy for the prosperity of the capital, your family will most likely be destroyed here. It's already very good that we can use this opportunity to leave the whirlpool of power struggle. Yes, Qin Han and Qin Yu both nodded. Although they understood in their hearts, they still couldn't calm down. How could Qin Yining feel good in his heart? But now that things had come to this, their family had no other choice. There are now 2 groups of enemies on the surface. Not counting the one above, there's still the Qiu family behind them. Qin Yining roughly explained how Qiu Yuanqing had obtained the position of family head, as well as the dispute between him and Pang Xiao. With the Qiu family's connections in the imperial court, If they want to target Wang Yi, they won't let our family go. So even if the one above doesn't try to kill us on the way, the Chiu family still won't let us go. If we stay together as a family, we're still too big of a target. So I have an idea. Second uncle, third uncle, and my two brothers, please listen. Second master nodded. Speak. I want to immediately separate our family members and secretly send them to the south. The guards Wang Yi left behind and the members of the Qingtian Alliance can help escort them. In addition, we can secretly hire some armed escorts to protect some of our family servants. As long as they reach Wang Yi's territory in the south, they'll be safe. But we definitely can't travel together. Leave immediately. Third elder master looked pensive. Qin Yining nodded. Yes. By the time we send the spirit, I hope that our entire family will have already been transferred. Second old master and third old master glanced at each other and were somewhat worried. This method is indeed safe. But when it's time to send the spirit, won't people be able to tell at a glance that there's something wrong with the number of people in the family? As you said, whether it's the one above or the Chiu family, they're not blind or idiots. So I have another plan. Qin Yining's eyes shone brightly. I heard that a while ago, official Wu from the Ministry of Revenue retired and asked for help. In the end, those people overturned the water and exposed their true identities. They were actually a group of bandits from the fake Bansheng idol gang. Not only did he take away all of Lord Wu's wealth, but he also broke one of Lord Wu's legs and caused the old man to die. It's true, Second Master said. This kind of thing happened before the new year. In the capital, there's a group of idol gangs that gather together and specialize in keeping an eye on the wedding and funerals of rich and powerful families. When there's a happy occasion, they'll say good things, but when there's a funeral, they'll wail loudly. At worst, they'll go to people's doorsteps to help sweep away the firecrackers and ask for reward. If they don't pay, they'll curse them. Even worse, like what official Wu encountered, they'll go to the front of an official who's retiring, only to be robbed in the end. After several investigations, they all said that those people were bandits from the vicinity of the capital in disguise. I reckon that official Wu encountered this group of bandits. Yes, I've also heard of such a thing. Third Master also said Shuntian Prefecture is searching for this group of bandits everywhere. However, these people are too cunning. It's fine if they're only after money, but they've also harmed people's lives and even violated women's families. Sister E, why are you asking about this? Qin Yining smiled. I want to ask someone to help send the spirit. Qin Han understood. Fourth sister, you want to use that group of bandits to replace the people our family sent away? Qin Yining nodded. That's right. In any case, those spies monitoring our family don't know everyone in our family. The bodyguards that Wang Yi left behind and my subordinates from the Qingtian Alliance aren't to be trifled with either. Those people can't enter the residence to check who's left and who's not. At most, they can roughly see whether or not there are fewer people. Our family is holding such a big event, so it's normal for people to come and go. It's not like all of our family members have left at once. They've been sent away one after another, and I've also asked for people to come and help. From the outside, the number of people we've left behind won't change. Third Master was somewhat hesitant. Even so, will this work? There's no better way right now. I think we should just say that our family members are few. My father has such a high official position as the Minister of the Board of Rights, but the funeral was held in such a desolate manner. Since that group of bandits make a living out of this, they'll definitely notice our family. When the time comes, I'll check carefully. If it's really that group of bandits who came, I won't have any psychological burden to let them send the coffin to us. Qin Han said, what if they're intercepted along the way? Then that group of people will be unlucky. Qin Yining's eyes were cold. If they can help us get away with it and also get rid of a problem for the government, they'll die a worthy death. Hearing this, Second Master and Third Master both nodded. But from now on, our family members will leave one by one. When the time comes, who will leave and who will stay? Qin Yining smiled. Young Master Mu and I will stay. Everyone else, regardless of whether they're master or servant, will leave. That won't do, Second Master said in a low voice. It's so dangerous. How can I let you stay here alone? You're Big Brother's only daughter. I can't let you be in any danger. Sister, you will leave, and I'll stay. It'll make it more believable. Otherwise, as a young daughter-in-law, how will you protect yourself if you're surrounded by bandits? Chin Ening said, I understand second uncle's good intentions, but I'll be the most credible one if I stay, because your majesty and the Chiu family have their eyes on me. If I don't show up when sending the coffin, the effect will be different from if you don't show up. As for safety, I'm confident. Young Master Mu's martial arts are excellent. He can escape unscathed with one person in front of two armies, let alone some bandits. There are only two outcomes. First, we'll be intercepted along the way. Young Master Mu can escape with me, and the bandits can deal with the interception. Second, we'll be robbed by bandits before they come to intercept us. Young Master Mu can also escape unscathed with me and let them miss us. By then, our family members will have arrived at a safe place. What's there to be afraid of? This is indeed a good idea, Qin Han and Qin Yu said in unison. Third Master hesitated. But it's too dangerous for Sister E to stay here alone. Seeing that Second Master was also hesitant, Qin Ening persuaded, Second Uncle and Third Uncle, listen to me. Because of Wang Yi, many people are watching me. It won't be easy for me to leave. But if I stay here, I can attract people's attention. You can take the opportunity to leave secretly. As long as you leave the capital, it'll be easy for young Master Mu to escape with me. The hall was silent. Second Master, Third Master, Qin Han, and Qin Yu were all thinking in silence. After a long time, Second Master sighed. I have to say that Sister Yi's idea is the most appropriate one. But it's too worrying. Qin Ening was secretly relieved. As long as they were willing to listen to her, everything would be fine. Otherwise, she really couldn't guarantee that the whole family could escape unscathed. No matter who died, she wouldn't have the face to see her father. Second Uncle, don't worry. I know what to do. Since Second Uncle and Third Uncle think it's feasible, let's discuss it. We'll divide the family members into several groups. Whoever leaves first will be escorted. All right. The few of them gathered together and divided the remaining members of the family Qin into several groups. After the discussion, Third Master spread the news to the public that the family Qin's funeral was too quiet and they needed to fill in the gaps. At the same time, Qin Ening took Mu Jinghu and Ji Yun to the prince's mansion. Chapter 8:18. Plotting in the dark, 2. In the afternoon, the sun was scorching hot. The servants of the Wang Fu gathered in groups of 2 or 3 to sit in the shade, leisurely eating tea and chatting. The sound of rolling wheels and horse hooves could be heard on the quiet street. They turned to look and saw that it was an ordinary blue carriage. They didn't pay it much attention. Not long after, the carriage stopped in front of the gate of the prince's mansion. The handsome scholar, sitting on the shaft of the carriage, jumped down. Then, the dark blue curtain of the carriage was lifted, and a maid wearing a plain white vest and dark blue jacket came down. Wasn't this Wang Fei's head servant girl, Jian? The servants shook and quickly rose to greet her. Greetings to Wang Fei. Qin Ening supported Ji Yun's hand as they got off the carriage. He brushed a strand of messy hair behind his ear. No need for formalities. Quickly reply inside. Wang Fei has returned. The servant told the servant boy at the door in a low voice. The servant boy was new and hadn't seen what Wang Fei looked like. He craned his neck to look at the door. Then he responded with a yes and ran inside. The servants respectfully opened the side door and invited Qin Ening in. The chief steward of the Wang Fu who received the news quickly came out with his servant boy. He respectfully bowed. Greetings to Wang Fei. Rise. Qin Ening walked towards the second gate as he asked, How's the Fu been these days? Wang Fei, everything is fine. There are no abnormalities. That's good. It's been hard on you when I wasn't home. It's not hard, it's not hard. This is this humble servant's duty. The chief steward smiled and cupped his hands. Qin Ening nodded and didn't ask more about the inner residence. Will Wang Fei return to her room to rest or go to Chunwei Hall? Let's go to Chunwei Hall first. Yes. After the chief steward asked, He ordered someone to pass on the message. It was because the old foreign's face was too swollen. In order to not be embarrassed when the mistresses met, they had to pass on the message. Qin Yining knew about the Yao clan and naturally understood. He didn't ask more and purposely slowed down his steps. In Chunhui Hall, Mrs. Ma was applying ointment on the Yao clan's faces with a dark expression. Sister Yi gave this to me last time. She said that it's a special ointment from the palace. It has a miraculous effect on relieving pain and swelling. Madame Ma rubbed the light green ointment on the swollen cheeks of the Yao clan. Although she was angry that the Yao clan was not upright, she was still her biological daughter after all. She felt sorry for her after hitting her. Yao clan felt a burning sensation on her wound. It was so painful that she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. "Oh my God, be gentle, be gentle." However, Mrs. Ma deliberately increased her strength and said, "You deserve it. I think you don't care about your relationship with Dai Fu anymore. When Dai Fu isn't at home, you're doing your best to humiliate his wife. Just do it. Sooner or later, Dai Fu will distance himself from you, and then you'll feel better." Yao clan was anxious when she heard that. What's wrong with me? What do I do that's not for him? Most people in the world avoid trouble when they see it. Why can't I do it? Do I have to hide under my arm when I know that family is troublesome? Dai Fu blames me. I think he has forgotten his mother after marrying a wife. He doesn't care about my feelings at all. Mrs. Ma was very angry at Yao clan's words. She wanted to reason with Yao clan, but Mrs. Ma couldn't open her mouth when she saw the way Yao clan straightened her neck and glared at her. After a long while, Mrs. Ma said, "I shouldn't have let you go out to work for a rich family. Look at what you've learned." Madame Ma was so angry that she closed the medicine box. Knowing that it was impossible to reason with her, she simply ordered, "You go to the Qin family with me later." It was our in-laws who had an accident. Their in-laws treated Dafu well when they were still alive. Dafu couldn't help when he was away. As his mother, don't you even want to pay respects to him? But father said, "Don't listen to your father's nonsense." Yao Chingu had just taken a puff of tobacco. Hearing that, he couldn't even breathe properly. He choked and coughed violently, glaring at Mrs. Ma. Mrs. Ma ignored him. Just as she was about to speak again, the maid outside came in. "Old madam, old master, and old madam, the princess is back." Why did she come back? Yao clan's voice was sharp. Mrs. Ma glared. "This is the prince's mansion, and is the princess. Why did she come back? This is her home. Does she want to come back sooner or later?" Yao clan pointed at his face. "But how can I meet people with my face like this?" As he spoke, he walked around like ants on a hot pan, looking for a place to hide. Mrs. Ma looked at Yao clan's appearance and was angry. "Why are you hiding? Don't you feel ashamed for doing such a thing? Now you care about your identity as a mother-in-law." Yao clan gritted their teeth in anger, but they didn't dare to provoke Mrs. Ma, lest they were beaten again. Mrs. Ma didn't bother to care about Yao clan's trouble and went out with the maid to welcome them. Yao clan didn't want to be seen as a joke. Seeing that Mrs. Ma went out to welcome them, they hurriedly hid behind the screen in the inner room. Only Yao Chingu sat in the same place, leaning against the Kong table and smoking. Qin Yining walked into the courtyard and saw Mrs. Ma, who was full of smiles. "Grandma, hey, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. How is your mother?" "Grandma, thank you for your concern. My mother is getting better. The doctor said that she'll be fine as long as she recuperates." Qin Yining curtsied as he spoke. Mrs. Ma stood up with Qin Yining's arm and sighed in relief. "It's good that she's fine. This incident happened too suddenly. When your mother heard the news in the south, she was already worried. Bodyguard Chow was able to ride his horse to the capital day and night, but your mother could only ride a carriage. She was too sad and tired on the way back. I think she fell ill from exhaustion." Qin Yining sighed. "I understand my mother's pain. Grandma, you must be tired from the journey this time." "It's nothing. Don't worry. I'm very healthy." Mrs. Ma held Qin Yining's hand and entered the room. Seeing Yao Chingu sitting on the edge of the Kong table and smoking, Qin Yining bowed respectfully. "Greetings, old master. How'd you been these days?" Old master looked down, frowned, and took a few puffs of smoke. He said lazily, "Fortunately, there's nothing wrong in the mansion. I'm still the same." "That's good." Qin Yining smiled. He looked around and didn't see the Yao clan. He guessed and smiled. "Where's my mother-in-law?" "Oh, she's not feeling well. She's sleeping." Mrs. Ma was about to tell the truth, but Yao Qinggu interrupted her. After all, they had been husband and wife for decades. Mrs. Ma gritted her teeth. She couldn't hit Yao Qinggu like she hit a child. She could only roll her eyes at Yao Qinggu when Qin Yining didn't see her. She turned to Qin Yining and said, "Don't worry. Your mother-in-law is fine." Qin Yining felt that there seemed to be a very vicious gaze staring at her. It was just like when she was stared at by a poisonous snake when she lived in the mountains. Chapter 819. Yao Qinggu and Madame Ma's expressions both became solemn. If Qin Yining hadn't brought it up, they wouldn't have thought of this at all. They had long been used to Pang Xiao going out to war over the years while they stayed in the capital. It wasn't the first time they were even invited to the palace for a short stay. Madame Ma said with some hesitation, "Alas, is the matter really that serious? Dai Fu is still stationed in the south. Don't tell me they won't be afraid." It was self-evident who they Madame Ma was referring to. Yao Qinggu stopped smoking at this moment. He frowned and said hesitantly, "It's not the same thing. There's still a whole family here. Can we just throw them away like that?" He tapped the cigarette holder on the bottom of his shoe a few times. The unburnt tobacco fell to the ground along with the ashes. The sparks flickered and were completely extinguished by Yao Qinggu's shoe. As if taking advantage of this action to think for a while, Yao Qinggu said earnestly, "You young people can't keep your composure after all. The situation you said is true, but the matter shouldn't have really escalated to such an extent. Dai Fu is not a random subject. He is your Majesty's sworn brother. The glory and glory of the whole family are tied to his wrist. Not to mention that, how can the stability of Dezhou be unrelated to Dai Fu? Don't worry, that person won't really do anything to us. He's just a little afraid. Don't tell me he doesn't care about his reputation anymore." Qin Yining lowered his eyes and listened patiently to Yao Qinggu's analysis. It seemed that he was too well protected and thought too highly of himself. He was a little too optimistic. Old Master's words have a certain degree of truth. Qin Yining smiled and briefly explained the recent situation before continuing. The situation now is different from before. Wang Ye's power in the south is growing. The Southern Yin has a new emperor, and the new emperor has a relatively close relationship with Wang Yi. This is enough to make people afraid. Moreover, something happened to my father this time. I'm so troubled in the palace. If I stay here, I'm afraid I'll become a hindrance to Wang Yi in the future." Madame Ma and Yao Qinggu were stunned for a moment. They didn't expect that so many things had happened in a place they didn't know. If Qin Yining hadn't mentioned it, Madame Ma wouldn't have dared to imagine that Qin Yining had such a thing happen to him in the palace. She held Qin Yining's hand and didn't know what to say. If that's the case, the situation's really critical. Yao Qinggu anxiously twiddled his fingers. "If it's like what you said, won't we be stopped when we leave the capital?" Assess. "That's why we need to leave secretly in batches." Qin Yining said seriously, "If Old Master agrees, I'll immediately arrange for Jinghu Wei to secretly escort us. Fortunately, our family is small, and we're a small target. It won't be difficult to sneak out of the city." Yao Qinggu nodded hesitantly and couldn't help but look in the direction of the inner room. Qin Yining also followed Yao Qinggu's gaze and happened to see a figure projected on the ground. If Qin Yining could see it, Madame Ma and Yao Qinggu naturally could see as well. Madame Ma's embarrassed face immediately turned red. Qin Yining was considerate and didn't ask any more questions. He stood up and said, "Grandmother, this matter shouldn't be delayed. If it's delayed for too long, I'm afraid there will be changes. If you and Old Master agree, I'll make the arrangements. Once we've all moved to the south and are in Wang Ye's territory, our safety can be guaranteed. We can also ensure that we won't be a burden to Wang Yi." Madame Ma nodded and looked at Yao Qinggu. "I think Immerse's makes sense." Yao Qinggu nodded and said, "That's good too. Just make the arrangements. Anyway, There's only a few of us in our family. It won't be a problem for us to sneak out. Once we've settled down in the south, we'll just have to earn a family business. The most important thing is to survive." Yao Qinggu was surprisingly sensible. This saved Qin Yining a lot of talking. Since it was decided, Qin Yining began to secretly plan. The Qing Tian alliance had also contacted the idlers who were escorting the spirit. Qin Yining was also afraid that he would wrongly accuse an innocent person, so he secretly asked Jing Zhe to follow these people. He found that they had indeed secretly colluded with many bandits. After confirming that they were the ones who had done a lot of bad things before, he felt at ease and used them. At the same time, the family Qin and the Wang mansion began to send people out one after another. The first batch of people to leave the family Qin was second madam, old madam, and a few others. Qin Yining didn't dare to send them off for fear of being seen through. He endured it and arranged for a young man to escort them. The next day at the Wang mansion, Yao Qinggu was also in disguise. He was first escorted out of the city by Tu Jinghu Wei to the gathering point outside the city. 2 days later, it was the Yao clan and the Ma clan's turn. Just like that, the two families left one after another. Soon, most of the masters of the Qin mansion had left. The day to send the spirit was getting closer and closer. Second master looked worriedly at Qin Yining and said, "Sister Yi, I'm still worried. Why don't I stay behind?" "Second uncle, didn't we discuss this? I'm the one who's being watched closely. To put it bluntly, after you all leave, no one will notice if you don't show up for 2 or 3 days. But if I don't show up for half a day, I'll immediately be discovered. I'm the one who can't leave." Qin Yining then looked at Bing Tang, Ji Yun, Xian Yun, Qiu Lu, and Lian Xiaozhou. He said in a low voice, "Don't be stubborn. At this time, you have to listen to my arrangements. You all must leave with second master." Bing Tang shook his head. "Wang Fei, I'll follow you. I know how to make medicine. I can protect myself." "That's right, Wang Fei. I have skills with me. Please let me stay behind to accompany you." Ji Yun's anxious face turned red. The rest of the people were in the same situation. They all wanted to stay behind to accompany Qin Yining. However, Qin Yining said sternly this time, "If you all stay behind, young Master Mu will have to divert his attention to escort you away. Won't that be dangerous? If young Master Mu takes me with him, we can escape wherever we want. We definitely won't be caught." Mu Jinghu also nodded. "I can't bring so many people with me." The few of them revealed a troubled expression. If they didn't leave, they might become a burden in the end. However, they really didn't feel at ease leaving Qin Yining alone. "Wang Fei, the masters of the mansion have all left. If we leave as well, what will happen to them? If we leave, won't everyone in the mansion be the group of people you hired? They're all bandits." Qiu Lu lowered her voice. "Those people are making a fuss. They're crying so much that the roof of the morning hall is about to be overturned. However, I feel that something is wrong. Wang Fei, it's so dangerous for you to stay behind and face them alone." Qin Yining smiled helplessly. "Young Master Mu is here. His martial arts are superb. It won't be a problem for him to escape with me. Moreover, the day after tomorrow is our wedding day. I don't have to bear with them for too long. If you all stay behind, I'll have to divert my attention to make arrangements for you. That's the real problem." He then turned to look at Xiao Yuqing, who was dressed in white. She was also a stubborn person. Even when he asked her to help escort the Dowager Duchess, Xiao Yuqing refused this time. She wanted to stay behind no matter what. Xiao Yuqing calmly looked back at Qin Yining. She pursed her lips and didn't say a word. The few of them fell silent. Second Old Master and the others had to admit that Qin Yining's analysis was correct. Although they were worried, they couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't be a burden to Qin Yining. If they stayed behind and encountered any danger, who would Mu Jinghu protect? It was better not to add to Qin Yining's troubles as soon as possible. As a result, the few of them could only obey Qin Yining's arrangements and leave with Second Old Master. At this time, other than Xiao Yuqing, the people from the prince's residence and the family Qin had quietly left in batches. Qin Yining arranged for all the Jinghu Wei silver mask secret agents and the guard in the prince's residence to stay with the masters who were about to leave. There were many people in the in-laws' family. Qin Yining didn't suggest that these people gather outside the city. Instead, they were to be separated into many groups and be escorted to the south. Qin Yining looked helplessly at Qiao Yuqing. "Aunt Qiao, are you still not leaving?" Qiao Yuqing shook her head. "Don't say anything about delaying young Master Mu's old friends. I have the ability to protect myself. I don't need anyone to save me. Since I'm going to send the spirit, I naturally have to follow." Qin Yining had already tried to persuade Qiao Yuqing several times. He had said all the excuses and explanations he could think of, but Qiao Yuqing remained unmoved. Just as Qin Yining was in a terrible fix, he saw Master Zhong rushing over with a forehead full of sweat. "Princess consort." Master Zhong looked excited, but he was afraid that others would see him. He used a lot of effort to maintain a calm expression, but his eyes were too bright and excited, betraying him. "Princess consort, there's news, there's news." Master Zhong lowered his voice and took out a piece of paper from his sleeve to hand to Qin Yining. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. He snatched the paper and opened it. A few familiar bold words on the paper came into view. "And the body is in the sunset moon. Don't miss it." It was a simple sentence, but Qin Yining stared at it for a long time. Mu Jinghu and Qiao Yuqing both looked at Qin Yining with wide eyes. As Qin Yining's expression was too rich, they also saw the words on the paper from both sides. They were momentarily stunned by their own guesses and did not react. Qin Yining snapped out of his daze and stuffed the paper into Qiao Yuqing's hands. Qiao Yuqing stared blankly at Qin Yining. Tears hung on her thick eyelashes and were about to fall. "It's him." Qin Yining nodded repeatedly. "Don't spread the news. It's true." Qiao Yuqing covered her mouth and clutched the paper tightly. Her tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. "He's fine. He's alive." When Qin Yining saw this, he couldn't help but cry as well. So father wasn't dead. So Sia's people had really arrived. Then, what Li Qiqian knew about the disappearance of the provisions, cloth, and grain, was it really his father's doing? He suddenly felt that Li Qiqian's anger was not in vain. When Qin Yining thought of this, his tears suddenly turned into laughter. He pulled Qiao Yuqing and said, "Aunt Qiao, this is great." Qiao Yuqing nodded excitedly. She couldn't say a complete sentence. Even Mu Jinghu and Master Zhong were moved. Chapter 820. Breaking an appointment after learning that Qin Huayuan was still alive, Qiao Yuqing's ruthless state of mind suddenly calmed down. Like a red-hot soldering iron that was put into cold water, all her anger was extinguished at once. The sky turned blue, and the world regained its color. Even the smell of burning paper in the air no longer suffocated her. Qiao Yuqing's eyes were filled with vigor, making Qin Yining feel that she was full of hope again. "Tell me, what do you need my help with?" Qin Yining smiled and pulled Qiao Yuqing's hand, saying, "Aunt Qiao, I'll leave Master Zhong's safety to you. Although I also left some people by Master Zhong's side, it's not as reassuring as you. All my assets and finances are managed by Master Zhong. The Wang residents and family Qin went to the south, and they are all counting on Master Zhong's money. He is too important. Can you help?" Qiao Yuqing looked at Qin Yining hesitantly, and could not help but look at the noisy morning hall. "It's nothing, but I'm still worried about you." Qin Yining smiled. "Young Master Mu was arranged by Wang Yi to protect me. Moreover, you also know my plan. If too many people are left behind, it will be detrimental to the implementation of the plan. This is really the most appropriate arrangement." Qiao Yuqing hesitated and bit her lower lip. "All right, I'll listen to you. But after I sent Master Zhong off, I want to go to Shiyu. I'm in a strange place, so I can't be at ease." Qin Yining nodded, saying, "Aunt Qiao is free to move. I naturally won't stop you. But to go to Shiyu, we have to pass through the desert, and it's very dangerous without anyone leading the way. You should contact the people of Green Heaven Alliance and see if they can use a tracking goo. That way, I can be at ease." "All right, don't worry." Qiao Yuqing smiled through her tears. Qin Yining also smiled and nodded. The depression that had accumulated in her heart for the past few days had finally dissipated. It was as if this good news could erase all the setbacks she had suffered. Qiao Yuqing escorted shopkeeper Zhong and left quietly. At this point, apart from Qin Yining and Mu Jinghu, as well as some servants who did not intend to bring them to the south and would return home after they left, the rest of the people in the Qin residence were temporarily hired to keep up appearances. The next day, Qin Yining went to the coffin and cried again. Then, he brought the two old women to the leader of the idol gang. Tomorrow is the day to deliver the coffin. I'm afraid it won't be lively enough. Also, I have to transport a lot of luggage to the south this time, so I'll need more people. Can you see if you can get some help? This man's name was Bao Hu. He looked to be in his 40s, with a stocky build and a hunchback. He looked like an honest farmer, but in reality, he was the first master of Phoenix Mountain, known in the pugilistic world as Second Master Bao. Looking at Qin Yining's delicate face, which looked even more pitiful after crying, Bao Hu was mesmerized. If not for the fact that he had gathered more than 100 brothers from 2 nearby strongholds to work together on this business deal, he would have brought this beauty back to be his mistress long ago. With the idea that he would definitely be able to win the beauty's heart, Bao Hu was extremely patient. He smiled and nodded repeatedly. "Boss, don't worry. Just leave this matter to me. I guarantee that tomorrow's matter will be grand and lively. I will definitely not let anyone look down on us." Qin Yining nodded. "That's good. Don't worry. Everyone will be rewarded." "Io, then I'll thank you on behalf of the brothers, boss." Qin Yining wiped his tears with a handkerchief, nodded casually, and turned to walk towards the moon gate. Bao Hu looked in the direction Qin Yining left in and slowly straightened his hunched back. His lips curled into a scornful and determined smile. He turned to order the people who were helping to cry. "Brothers," boss said to perform well. "Make it more lively. Don't lose face. Everyone start crying." Receiving the order, the front yard, which had already been filled with cries, shook even more. Qin Yining arranged for the remaining servant women in the Fu to pack up the luggage in boxes. He then ordered them in a low voice, "After we leave tomorrow, everyone can go their separate ways. When I return to Jing, I will contact everyone again. It has been hard on everyone in the family Qin these days." "It's not hard. The masters have treated us very well. No one could do anything about something like this happening. Yes, after Wang Fei returns, if you have any orders, just come find us." The servant women chattered and then bowed to Qin Yining in unison. Qin Yining returned the bow, gave each of them a reward, and had them leave. Early in the morning, when the sky was dark, the front of Qin Fu became lively. Even though those bandits had done all sorts of bad things, they had used this method to deceive for a long time. The ceremony was very grand, and even Master Yinyang had prepared it in advance. But Qin Yining was slightly anxious at this time, because after waking up today, she could not find Mu Jinghu. The auspicious time had arrived, and she could not wait. The troops were about to depart. She could not stop the ceremony and wait for Mu Jinghu alone. But there were bandits all around her. If Mu Jinghu was not by her side, she did not know what to do. The incident had happened so suddenly that Qin Yining was caught unprepared. She had sent everyone away and did not even have anyone to discuss it with. "This is the pot that Master will use when he goes there. Boss, you have to use as much strength as you can and break some. Otherwise, it will be difficult for Master to carry it when he goes down." As Qin Huayun only had one daughter, Qin Yining, and her son-in-law was not by her side, Qin Yining had to break the funeral pot. Qin Yining suppressed her anxiety and followed Master Yinyang's instructions with an ugly expression. She knelt in front of the hearse, raised the pot that had been used to send paper money these days, and smashed it on the ground. With a crisp sound, the pot was smashed to pieces. Master Yinyang, Bao Hu, and the rest were shocked. They did not expect a woman to be so strong. Bao Hu waved his hand to remind them as he cried at the top of his lungs. The funeral procession cried like a tsunami and set off in a lively manner. Bao Hu said to Qin Yining, "Boss, get on the carriage. We're leaving now." Qin Yining used a handkerchief dipped in ginger juice to wipe the corners of her eyes. Streams of tears immediately fell. She nodded weakly and walked slowly towards the carriage. But from the corner of her eyes, she was looking around. Where was Mu Jinghu? Why wasn't Mu Jinghu here yet? No matter how much she dilly-dallied, she still had to get on the carriage. At this time, it was impossible to get off. Qin Yining's carriage was in the middle of the procession. There were carts in front, and behind them there were transporting boxes. Bao Hu's men were hired and naturally surrounded the entire procession. A clever boy found that the servants of the Qin's mansion didn't follow them. So he reported back to Bao Hu, second master, there is something strange in this family. The delicate madam didn't bring any servant girl or older female servant with her, and none of the older female servants in the mansion is here today. Bao Hu led his horse and walked at the back of the procession. He looked back at Qin Manor and said, "Don't worry about them. How much money can a group of servants have? Look at how many carriages there are in this procession. This damned Lord Qin used to be the Minister of Revenue. In Dian, he had been an official for many years. Now that he is dead, his family is returning to their hometown. Naturally, they have to bring all their belongings with them. If we can bring these things back, this trip will not be in vain. But there might be treasures in that house. Damn it, are you stupid? Are you stupid? Can't you tell which is the watermelon and which is the sesame? Also, where is this? This is the capital. Are we going to rob them? Do you still want to eat prison food?" Bao Hu's eyes widened. If not for the fact that he was afraid of being seen through, he would have slapped him. Yes. Second master is right. I was thinking wrongly. Qin Yining looked out through the gap in the carriage window. Now, there were bandits all around. If Mu Jinghu was by his side, Qin Yining would not be nervous at all. However, Mu Jinghu suddenly disappeared. The most important part of Qin Yining's plan to evacuate her family was that Mu Jinghu would follow and protect her. She would take her with her when they were in danger. No matter if it was the bandits or the Qiu family or Li Qiqian who attacked first. As long as Mu Jinghu was there, she would be able to escape unscathed. What should she do now? Qin Yining looked around and touched the bottom of the seat. There was nothing in the carriage that she could use. If Mu Jinghu did not arrive in time, would she really have to rely on the hairpin to protect herself? Qin Yining took a few deep breaths and touched the small paper bag that Bing Tang gave her in her sleeve to calm down. It was still crowded outside the carriage. At this time, the funeral procession had not left the city. She thought that these bandits were not crazy and would not attack in the capital. If they wanted to attack, they would have to go further and to a deserted area. On the other hand, if the Qiu family or Li Qiqian wanted to kill them, they would definitely choose a place that was far away from the capital. Therefore, she was still safe for now. After taking a few more deep breaths, Qin Yining calmed down completely. She did not know if Mu Jinghu had betrayed Pang Xiao, but now was not the time to find out who was responsible. Her top priority was to think of a way to protect herself. There were more than 100 people delivering the coffins around her. How could she escape before they attacked her? Qin Yining closed her eyes and thought quickly. It was because Qin Yining closed her eyes that she didn't notice that there were several familiar faces among the crowd of onlookers on the way out of the city. Tian Jizi was wearing a dark blue Taoist robe and a round hat. His hands were behind his back, and he smiled as he watched the family Qin funeral procession leave. He then said to Mu Jinghu, "Why? Are you worried?" "Martial uncle, I am really worried. Why don't you let me escort her back? I will hand her over to Pang Zhishi and immediately come back to look for you." "Okay, that works too." Tian Jizi clicked his tongue and said, "When the time comes, buy more paper money for me to burn so that I won't be poured down there." Mu Jinghu choked and couldn't say anything. Chapter 821. Since Tian Jizi said so, what could Mu Jinghu do? At that time, the Grand Master had accepted him and taught him all his martial arts in order to let him protect Tian Jizi's safety. If Tian Jizi was not so independent, Mu Jinghu would have to call her master. But even if Tian Jizi was only his martial uncle now, and he had been waiting for his master who would not appear until God knows when, Tian Jizi's safety was still a responsibility that he could not shirk from, unless he betrayed his master. "Martial uncle, have you calculated the time of your tribulation?" Tian Jizi glanced at Mu Jinghu. "I can calculate, but I'm not a god. Do you really expect me to be omniscient and omnipotent? If I could really calculate when I would be in trouble, would I still need you to protect me? Mu Jinghu was tongue-tied by Tianjizi for a long time and could not think of anything to say in response. But Qin Yining's situation was so critical. She trusted him so much and sent all the people who could protect her away because she was afraid that they would encounter danger on the way and these innocent people would die. She even told him in private that if there really was danger, it was more important for him to take her and escape first. He could give up all of his belongings, and he shouldn't put himself in danger just to snatch back some worldly possessions. Pang Xiao trusted him. Qin Yining also trusted him, but he was called away by his martial uncle at the critical moment. If something happened to Qin Yining, how could he explain it to his friends? What's more, Qiu Feishan's family was in such a situation, and now she had made up her mind to cooperate with Pang Xiao. If he offended Pang Xiao here, wouldn't he not only not be of help, but also be a hindrance to Qiu Feishan? Mu Jinghu grabbed his hair in pain. Martial uncle, forget it, you don't have to be troubled. Actually, you can leave immediately. You don't have to care about my life or death. Tianjizi said with a smile. Anyway, I've been in danger for a long time, but it's the most dangerous time in the past few days. I've never been afraid of death. If I'm killed, I can go to paradise early. You don't have to worry too much. If you want to protect the Qin clan, you can go now. Tianjizi's words were sarcastic. How could Mu Jinghu not understand? He hadn't forgotten Mu Jinghu's original intention of joining the sect. Forget it. If something really happened to Qin Yining this time, his only way was to atone for his crime with death. Mu Jinghu closed her eyes and said with a straight face, Uncle, when will this tribulation end? AI, how would I know? Even if you want me to observe the stars at night, I'll have to wait until it's dark, right? The divine predictor pointed at the gradually rising sun, humming a little tune as he walked in front. Mu Jinghu could only purse his lips and follow. Only one street away from where Tianjizi and Mu Jinghu were, the crowd gradually dispersed. Yu Qiyin was dressed in a sapphire blue robe, his white hair tied up in a high ponytail. He looked like a downtrodden scholar. He stared blankly at the family Qin funeral procession and sighed after a long time. Gu Shixiang frowned. After several months of bumpy travel, the old man who had served 3 emperors had become even thinner, and his mental state was not very good. Looking at Yu Qiyan's frown, Gu Shixiang's heart was filled with frustration. Wang Yi, do you still have feelings for the family Qin? After all, Lord Qin was my teacher. Yu Qiyin sighed. Besides, the family Qin is in such dire straits because Lord Qin used to be a Dayan, so we can't trust him. Gu Shixiang frowned. Wang Yi, do you really think so? Yu Qiyin frowned and looked at Gu Shixiang. Old Master Gu, what do you think? Gu Shixiang had always known that Yu Qiyin wasn't a clear-cut person. He couldn't make up his mind on many things and had to wait for his decision. In the past, Gu Shixiang would have been proud of Yu Qiyan's dependence on him, but he had been relying on him for too long, especially this time in Nanyan. After Yu Qiyin killed Yu Qishujia, he pushed all the blame to him in front of Pang Xiao. It wasn't the first time Gu Shixiang knew that Yu Qiyin didn't have a brain for politics. But it was fine if he didn't have a brain for politics, but he didn't take responsibility either. This made Gu Shixiang extremely unhappy with Yu Qiyin. When one person was unhappy with another, no matter what that other person did, they would be unhappy with him. Gu Shixiang lowered his eyes and hid his emotions. He patiently instructed, the family Qin is in such dire straits, not because Qin Ming used to be a Dayan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been appointed as the Minister of Rights. The reason why he's being targeted is because the higher-ups are increasingly wary of Prince Zhongshan. Yu Qiyin stopped in his tracks. So you're saying that the Qin clan is in danger now? This person's brain suddenly became bright, but Gu Shixiang wasn't happy at all. The Qin clan's safety has nothing to do with Wang Yi now. Even if Pang Zhishi dies, the Qin clan's future doesn't fall on Wang Yi's shoulders. This time, Wang Yi came all the way back to the capital from Nanyan. It's still unknown whether your majesty will put him in an important position, but the great country in the south will definitely be lost. We'll be thankful as long as we don't get scolded for building the foundation among the people that we worked so hard to build. Gu Shixiang took a deep breath again. His chest felt tight, and he suppressed his endless complaints. It was getting harder and harder for him to control his emotions, and he couldn't help but want to lose his temper at Yu Qiyan. Yu Qiyan also saw Gu Shixiang's dissatisfaction and sighed helplessly. He was grateful to Gu Shixiang, but Gu Shixiang was becoming more and more arrogant, and it was becoming more and more unbearable for him. Let's go and see His Majesty. Since they were already in the capital, they were already in the sights of the spies. Yu Qiyan put aside his thoughts about Qin Ming and walked to the palace gate first. The family Qin's group left the capital. Once they were out of the city gate, the noise gradually quieted down. This group of bandits was in the business of making people proud. Since the onlookers were gone, they naturally couldn't be bothered to cry. Qin Ming sat upright in the carriage and closed his eyes to listen to the movements outside. When he heard the surroundings quiet down, Qin Ming began to calculate the current speed of the carriage and the distance away from the capital. Fortunately, she wasn't a housewife who only stayed at home. She had been out of the capital many times. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to estimate the time. She leaned back and rested her head on the wall of the carriage. Through the gap in the window, she could only see the trees moving backward. Once they were out of the city, there would be no buildings to refer to. She could only estimate the general direction of their journey from the sunlight and the canopy of the trees. Now that the group was stable, it seemed that they had just left the capital, and this group of people wouldn't immediately make a move. Qin Ming thought about it and closed his eyes again. The group moved forward. Bao rode on a yellow hussar and rode on the left side of Qin Ming's carriage. He stared at the tightly closed window without blinking. "Boss, why don't you open the window? It's June. Don't you feel stuffy? When the sun rises, I'm afraid something bad will happen to you in the carriage." Chapter 822. Bao, who glared and harshly reprimanded his subordinates. "All of you, shut up. A bunch of uncouth people. You don't have any insight. I'm talking to the boss. Why are you interrupting? The boss is a refined person. Don't disturb him." Everyone was trying hard not to laugh. They had seen Bao, who drink big bowls of wine, eat big mouthfuls of meat, and kill people without batting an eyelid. Now, he was unexpectedly so considerate towards a young lady. It seemed like heroes have a weakness for beauties. This time, he wanted both the beauty and the money. The people looked at each other and didn't dare to make any more jokes. But they understood Bao Hu very well. They had played with countless women, but they had never seen one as beautiful as the one in the carriage. Even a drop of tear could make a person's bones go soft. If she was willing to have a night with him, wouldn't she be willing to pluck the moon if he wanted the stars? No wonder Bao Hu was so gentle, as if he was a different person. Even though these people had quieted down, Qin Yining could still feel that these people's attention was focused on her. She was a person who was very sensitive to other people's malice. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to survive in the mountains. Qin Yining knew what these people were thinking of her and what they were planning. Even though she was anxious and afraid, she also knew that at this point, there was no use being anxious or afraid. Only by calming herself down could she accurately judge the timing and not harm herself. Qin Yining didn't speak. Outside the carriage, Bao Hu didn't care and was still attentive. "Boss, are you bored? After all, you don't have anyone to accompany you for a long time. Are you hungry? Did you eat enough for breakfast? Are you thirsty? I even brought water here." Qin Yining closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she forced herself to calm down. "Many thanks, but I don't need it right now." Hearing the beauty give him a response, Bao Hu was overjoyed and proudly rubbed his head. He was born with great strength. The dozen or so women who served him in the residence were so mesmerized by him that they couldn't move. It seemed that this Wang Fei's husband was always outside and had been alone for a long time. He must be very lonely. When Bao Hu thought this, all the blood in his body rushed to the lower half of his body. Looking at the color of the sky and their current position, Bao Hu had to suppress his thoughts. No hurry, no hurry. In any case, he would be able to do it tonight. By then, he would be far away from the capital. Wouldn't it be easy to capture a young lady? Later in the stronghold, he could enjoy himself however he wanted. There was still a long way to go. Bao was immensely proud of himself. Because he was determined to win, he wasn't in a hurry. Along the way, he asked about Qin Yining's well-being. Even when the team stopped for lunch, he personally served the steamed buns and cut beef to Qin Yining. Qin Yining had no choice but to open the car door. She lowered her eyes and took in the food that Bao brought over. Her watery eyes looked around and took in the scenery around her. She thanked Bao before closing the car door shyly. Bao's subordinates, who were standing guard around the carriage, were stunned. They stared blankly in the direction of the carriage, forgetting to chew on the steamed buns and smoked meat. Bao's blood was boiling as he ran his thick, fan-like hand through his hair. "Look, what are you looking at? Let's eat. Let's continue on our way after eating." One of the youngsters muttered softly, "Let's hurry up so that we can hug the beauty." Bao's ears were sharp, so he wasn't angry when he heard it. He laughed and kicked the youngster's leg. "You talk too much." The people around them all burst into laughter. Qin Yining sat in the carriage. She didn't dare to touch the food and water that Bao brought over. If there was poison in it, wouldn't that make it easy for him to do whatever he wanted? Qin Yining pursed her dry lips. She broke off some of the steamed buns and took away a few pieces of meat. She wrapped them in a handkerchief and hid them in a corner under her seat. Along the way, Bao had been talking to her and trying to get close to her. He definitely had other intentions towards her. When it came to giving food and water, there was a need to take it. If she didn't take it, she could still ask about her well-being. Since she wanted to let down their guard, she had to do it properly. As Qin Yining expected, not long after, Bao, who stood in front of the carriage and said, "Boss, are you done eating?" Qin Yining softly said, "I'm done eating." Bao didn't ask and directly opened the carriage door. When he saw that she had eaten half of the steamed buns and a few pieces of meat, he felt inexplicably happy. He couldn't help but ask with concern, "Why did you eat so little?" No wonder her waist was so thin that he could wrap his hand around it. A beauty was a beauty. Perhaps she even liked to eat dew. Bao chuckled. He didn't wait for Qin Yining to reply and said, "If boss feels full, you can reward me with this food." Actually, this was an extremely improper suggestion. What kind of person would be so intimate as to eat the same steamed bun? This was also Bao's way of sounding her out. Qin Yining wanted to let down their guard and find an opportunity to escape. Naturally, she wouldn't make them guard against her. She shyly lowered her eyes and nodded silently. She seemed to feel that it was inappropriate and said, "I can't waste the food that I haven't eaten." Yes. Don't waste it." Bao grabbed a piece of meat in front of Qin Yining and then opened his mouth wide to bite it. He was still watching Qin Yining's reaction from the corner of his eyes. Qin Yining was extremely disgusted, but she didn't show it. She only shyly lowered her eyes. Bao happily walked away with the steamed bun and meat. Qin Yining then closed the carriage door. Once the door was closed, her face instantly darkened. These bandits had done all kinds of evil. It seemed that raping and pillaging was a common occurrence. At this moment, Qin Yining really hoped that Li Qiqian and the Qiu family would quickly arrange for a group of people to rob them and catch all of these bandits in one fell swoop. Even if they were killed by those people, it would be better than falling into the hands of these bandits and letting them succeed. After lunch, the group set off again. Qin Yining was still obediently staying in the carriage. She silently observed the outside through the slit in the window. She was highly alert and constantly paid attention to the changes in her surroundings. When evening came, Bao urged his horse closer to the carriage. He smiled and said, "Boss, I just sent someone to scout ahead. After walking for about 2 hours, we'll see a place with the back of the forest facing the river. It's the most suitable place to set up camp. Let's rest here tonight." Qin Yining's voice could be heard through the walls of the carriage. "I'll follow your arrangements." "Okay." Bao nodded excitedly. He excitedly turned around and instructed his men, Hurry up. When we reach the flat ground by the river, we'll stop and set up camp. We'll start a fire and prepare a meal." "Got it," the men below replied loudly. Qin Ening tightened her grip on the small paper bag hidden in her sleeve. This was a self-defense medicine that Bing-Tang gave her. It was colorless and odorless, and it would dissolve upon contact with water. It wouldn't be discovered by experienced people like the knockout drug. If it was used as a medicinal powder and scattered in the air, it would naturally be effective. However, Qin Ening was afraid that she would fall for it. Furthermore, there were more than 100 bandits around her. What was the point of scattering the powder if it could only knock out a few of them? Qin Ening pursed her lips. She quickly sketched out many possible solutions in her mind. At the same time, she observed the environment outside the carriage and thought of possible escape routes. Not long after, the group arrived at the location Bao Hu had told them about. The carriage slowly came to a stop. Bao Hu jumped off his horse and walked to the side of the carriage excitedly. He smiled and said, "Boss, let's get off the carriage. We'll be resting here for today." Bao Hu looked at the carriage excitedly and expectantly. After waiting for a while, he saw the carriage door open. A delicate woman in a white dress bent over and poked her head out. He couldn't help but reach out to help her, but the beauty shyly avoided him. TSK. She was actually so shy. However, even if she was shy, she still had to do what she had to do. Could she escape from his grasp? Bao Hu wasn't in a hurry to get close to Qin Ening. He also didn't take the initiative to make physical contact with her. He didn't want the beauty to be disgusted. The group of bandits watched as Bao Hu circled around Qin Ening's carriage, as if they were watching a play. At this moment, when they saw Bao Hu circling around her attentively after she got off the carriage, all of them had evil smiles on their faces and winked at each other. However, they were all very efficient in their work. Some went to the nearby forest to pick up firewood, some went to the river to fetch water, some led the livestock to graze, and some set up simple tents. Qin Ening looked at the surrounding scenery and pretended to admire it. In fact, she was going through the escape plan she had come up with on the carriage. It wouldn't be easy for her to swim away. The river was turbulent. Although she knew how to swim, she wasn't proficient in it. Moreover, there were many bandits who knew how to swim. Once she got into the water and was caught, it would be even more dangerous. Thus, she could only think of a way to use the poison in her sleeve to knock out as many of them as possible. That way, she could seize the opportunity to escape. Thinking up to this point, Qin Ening curiously looked at a few young men who had just returned from picking wild vegetables. Perhaps these bandits had suffered hardships before they became bandits. In this season, there were many edible wild vegetables in the wild. They didn't think about the taste and brought back a lot of them. They ran to the river and casually dipped them in the water, intending to bring them back to cook. Qin Ening saw this and hurriedly said, "Won't it be too rough to eat like this?" The bandits who were cooking the wild vegetable soup stopped in their tracks and raised their heads to look at Qin Ening. Their eyes were filled with endless mockery. "We're not rich nobles. We're used to eating plain tea." The most short-tempered youth was quite cynical. Qin Ening didn't care and acted as if he didn't see the mockery in their eyes. He said, "That's not what I meant. It's not that wild vegetables aren't good. It's just that one can't get tired of eating fine food. If you can make it better, why would you make it so difficult for yourself?" Qin Ening spoke slowly and softly. His tone was gentle and made people feel comfortable. The few youths who were cooking the soup couldn't help but look at the wild vegetables that had been carelessly thrown into the crude iron pot. There were also some that hadn't been thrown in yet. Bao Hu wanted to curry favor with Qin Ening and hurriedly said, "Boss, you're right. We're all a bunch of rough and uncouth people. How can we be as meticulous as you? Look, how should we eat these? We still have some cooked meat left. Brothers, we can also catch some wild rabbits and pheasants. We can also catch some fish from the river. We must let boss eat well." Chapter 823. Who would have thought that Minister Qin's daughter, Prince Zhongshan's wife, would take the initiative to offer to cook a meal for this group of Jianghu heroes? Everyone was dumbfounded. Bao Hu was the first to react. In the eyes of the Qin clan, they were all servants hired by her to deliver the coffin. What kind of master would take the initiative to cook for her servants? Moreover, after leaving the capital, Bao Hu felt that something was amiss. Even if the family had declined and no one delivered coffins, it shouldn't be possible for them to only have Lord Qin's only daughter, right? Could it be that they didn't even have a servant or a martial arts master? If it weren't for the fact that Qin Yining was just a delicate woman who couldn't cause any trouble, Bao Hu would have already made the first move. There's no need for that. Bao Hu smiled and said, "We're all rough people who are used to digging for food in the fields. A group of rough men like us can eat anything. If boss doesn't think the food is delicious, just tell me what you want to eat. I'll do my best to find it for you." Qin Yining seemed to know that they wouldn't agree, so she wasn't discouraged. She immediately changed her mind and said, "It's not that I don't think the food is delicious. I don't have a big appetite, so how much can I eat? It's mainly because everyone is tired. When my father was alive, he taught me that I shouldn't judge others based on my status. Even though we're in an employer-employee relationship, there aren't a lot of people in my family. After my father passed away, Your Majesty didn't say anything, so all of my relatives didn't dare to get close. If it weren't for you, this funeral would be very sad and miserable. My father didn't even have any glory after his death. That's why I want to personally cook for you to express my gratitude. Of course, if you don't want to eat, that's fine. When we get to my family's ancestral home, I'll reward everyone." Qin Yining's words were reasonable. Coupled with her gentle appearance, everyone's hearts softened. Bao Hu was the leader of a group of bandits. Even if he didn't care much about the imperial court, he had heard that after Qin Huayuan's death, no one from his family Qin dared to come to pay their respects. Now that she had said that, the doubts in his heart had been resolved. Presumably, none of the Qin clan's subordinates had been seen. When the tree topples, the monkeys scatter. When the calamity struck, they all flew away separately. Bao Hu looked Qin Yining up and down again. Looking at her slender figure, dressed in mourning dress, she was like a willow branch swaying in the wind. What could such a delicate girl do? He just wanted to cook a dish, and the cheapest part was his internal organs. Moreover, he was watching from the side. The water was carried by his people, and the vegetables were found by his people. What did she do? Thinking up to this point, Bao Hu grinned. Boss is a kind and honest person. Lord Qin's reputation among the commoners was also very good. However, it's difficult to become a person and an official. Forget it, you can do whatever you want. Since you said you want to cook, then let's cook. He had a doting look on his face. Qin Yining's heart was filled with joy. However, on the surface, she only nodded indifferently. She didn't appear to be very enthusiastic. Bao Hu had the people who were cooking the wild vegetable soup moved to the side. Some of them were too slow and even got kicked in the butt. Qin Yining saw Bao Hu's eagerness. She didn't express any disgust or any other emotions. She controlled her attitude perfectly so that Bao Hu wouldn't immediately make a move on her. However, she also gave Bao Hu some hope so that he wouldn't fly into a rage out of humiliation. She was only giving him some hope to keep him in suspense. Qin Yining began to pick the wild vegetables. Some of the soil on the vegetables hadn't been washed clean, so she had someone prepare water to clean them again. Bao Hu crossed his arms and watched Qin Yining wash the vegetables. He even asked someone to find a small knife to cut the vegetables. No matter how he looked at her, he felt that she was pleasing to the eye. He secretly thought that even though this beauty was just cooking, she was still able to make people's hearts go wild. If she could be like this in the village, it would be great to look at her, as if she was a painting. With that thought in mind, Bao Hu made up his mind to help Qin Yining. Qin Yining didn't hesitate to order him around. He had Bao Hu retrieve a freshly hunted wild rabbit to clean up, and then had Bao Hu cut the meat. When the surrounding people who were cooking saw that Bao Hu and Qin Yining were actually working together, they tactfully moved away, even though they didn't want to miss the chance to look at the beauty. After all, Bao Hu had already accumulated a lot of power. Who would dare to provoke him? Not long after, the entire campsite of more than 100 people was lit up with smoke. The mountain bandits gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and sat around a small pot to eat. Only Qin Yining was in the center of the campsite, where Bao Hu was. The other mountain bandits all hid far away to avoid spoiling the situation. "Boss, what do you think about this?" Bao Hu chuckled. The way he looked at Qin Yining was like a starving beast that had seen its prey. He was even more determined to get it. Qin Yining nodded. Without saying a word, he pinched some salt and added it into the rabbit meat and wild vegetable soup. He stirred a little, then took a ceramic bowl and scooped some soup for Bao Hu. Bao Hu received the bowl with both hands, feeling somewhat flattered. He slurped a mouthful and said, Boss's culinary skills are not bad. Qin Yining smiled and didn't say much. Her culinary skills were only ordinary. This Bao Hu had bad intentions, which was why he was able to taste something different. However, this was exactly what Qin Yining hoped for. Qin Yining washed his hands, took a steamed bun, got up, and walked towards the carriage. I'm a little tired. I want to rest for a while. Bao Hu said, There's still a pot of meat soup. Aren't you going to eat it? I don't have much of an appetite. I'll just eat some dried food. Qin Yining walked towards the carriage. Bao Hu looked at Qin Yining's slender back. She was dressed in white. Her long hair was tied up in a simple bun, revealing her slender and fair neck. The curve of her neck and shoulders was exceptionally beautiful. There were also white silk flowers in her hair. Perhaps she was too sad to eat because she had lost her family? Bao Hu took a bite of the steamed bun as he drank the soup. The brothers around him came over and whispered, Second Master, how is it? Is that woman interested in you? Someone scooped the soup and distributed it to the people around him. Bao Hu drank another big mouthful of soup and took a bite of the steamed bun. He said in a muffled voice, Get lost, you bunch of brats. Why are you so nosy? Everyone laughed and drank the soup while praising in an exaggerated manner. This soup is not bad. The taste of a rich family's daughter is indeed different. What do you mean by that? Bao Hu's heart was already fluttering, but after hearing these people's words, it became even more unbearable. He looked at the sky. The orange sunset was hanging on the horizon. It was so gorgeous that even a boorish person like Bao Hu couldn't help but admire it. TSK, I'll go take a look. Bao Hu walked towards the carriage. Unexpectedly, Qin Yining got out of the carriage. She glanced at Bao Hu before walking towards the forest behind them. Bao Hu asked loudly, Boss, where are you going? Qin Yining said in a muffled voice, I'm going to the forest for a while. Her meaning was vague, but clear. She was the only woman here, and he hadn't seen her go to the bathroom all day. Chapter 8:24. Bao Hu became bolder and bolder. He did not shy away from the topic and was about to get closer to her. Qin Yining lowered her head, as if she was so shy that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She repeatedly said, No need, no need. Bao Hu tried to scare her. Wild beasts often appear in the wilderness. What if you encounter a wild wolf or dog in the forest? What if it takes you away? I have some strength, so I can keep a lookout for you. Just as Bao Hu said, Qin Yining was so scared that her whole body trembled. However, she was going to relieve herself, so she could not nod. She turned around and walked into the forest with her head lowered. Bao Hu patted the crumbs off his hands and followed her with large strides. When the bandits who were drinking soup and eating saw this scene, they all laughed and jeered. Motherfucker, why aren't we as lucky as Second Master? Look, that woman is interested in our Second Master. Her husband is always outside, so it's normal for her to be lonely. You didn't see how those girls in the brothel looked as if they were starving when they saw us. Their eyes were green. Suit you too. You really know how to brag. The last time you asked the peach blossoms to come out and look at us, we didn't see them. That woman chased me away because I didn't bring enough money. You can try if you don't have enough money. When I go, the woman will give me money instead. The group of people joked around. Bao Hu was in a daze as he listened, but his heart was set on fire. Seeing Qin Yining walk into the forest, Bao Hu quickened his pace. In any case, they were in the middle of nowhere in the middle of nowhere. Once he slept with this young lady, he would be able to take all the gold, silver, and treasures from the carriages outside. Then, he would be able to complete the transaction. He wasn't picky. Why not just do it here? The forest was even more interesting. Thinking of this, Bao Hu rushed forward and hugged Qin Yining's waist. He then used his sour mouth to nibble on Qin Yining's face. Ah, Qin Yining exclaimed. As Bao Hu went forward to kiss her, Qin Yining tried her best to avoid and struggle. Bao Hu was not annoyed. Instead, he found it even more interesting. He kept muttering, "Good wife, since you've submitted to Big Brother will treat you well. Big Brother will definitely serve you well. Good wife, come and call Big Brother." In the distant campsite, they could faintly hear the movements coming from the forest. They could even see Bao Hu dragging someone into the depths of the forest. The group of bandits roared with laughter. Second Master can't hold it in anymore. A large group of people laughed. There were also those who were not familiar with Bao Hu, or those whom Bao Hu did not usually talk to, who were temporarily recruited from other villages to do business with. They all gathered together in a distance and discussed in low voices. They were full of dirty jokes, and their hearts were filled with envy. In the forest, Qin Yining was struggling as he ran. He brought her deeper and deeper into the forest. Her long hair was messed up, and her clothes were messed up. Bao Hu's smelly mouth kissed her body. His big hand pulled her skirt and pressed her against a tree. Qin Yining was really flustered. Did he give her the wrong medicinal powder from Bing Tang? If not, why didn't she see any effect after eating a bowl of soup? However, at this moment, his movements suddenly slowed down. His eyelids became heavy, and his hands and feet were no longer listening to him. "Beauty, just submit to Big Brother." Beauty. As he spoke, even his tongue was no longer listening to him. Qin Yining suddenly felt the pressure on him lessen. He watched as Bao Hu collapsed on the ground like a pile of frozen mud that had been placed in a warm place. He became a pile of mud once again. Bao Hu's eyes were in a daze. As he watched Qin Yining walk in front of him, he knew that he must have fallen into a trap. This woman actually dared to plot against him. However, his consciousness gradually blurred, and he could not even scream. Qin Yining viciously kicked Bao Hu's vital part. Bao Hu instantly woke up from the pain. He felt as if a certain part of his body had exploded. The heart-wrenching pain was unbearable. He opened his mouth and screamed, but his mouth and throat were not listening to him. His eyelids slowly closed again. Qin Yining turned around and ran into the forest. At this moment, the people in the campsite who had eaten the rabbit meat and wild vegetable soup had fallen asleep on the ground. A group of people was uniformly lying on the ground. If the people around them could not tell what was going on, they would be idiots. Some people rushed over to ask about the situation, while others felt that the forest was strangely quiet. They did not care if they would ruin Bao Hu's mood and hurriedly rushed into the forest. After entering the forest, they saw Bao Hu sprawled on the ground after walking for a while. He had already fainted. His head was covered in cold sweat, and his face was distorted. There was a suspicious dark stain on his khaki pants. "Fuck," did Second Master P. "Don't fucking talk nonsense. It must be that woman who poisoned him. Chase after her." The people from the same stronghold as Bao Hu were furious. They glared and looked around. However, there was another stronghold. This time, the people who were doing business with Bao Hu looked at each other. "Let's not chase after her. Money is more important. Anyway, there's so many boxes, baskets, and valuables left behind. How long can a woman live in the wilderness? Let's just tell her to be eaten by wild dogs." "No, that slut looks so coquettish. How dare she poison our second master? Let's catch her and let her have a taste of her own medicine." Yes, let's catch her." What kind of man is he if he doesn't take revenge? But what's more important is money or other things. Second Master is not your boss on the mountain. Of course you don't care. Fuck your grandpa. Bullshit. The two groups of people started cursing. As they cursed, the hot-tempered ones attacked first. Since someone attacked, someone else retaliated. There were many people from the stronghold on Phoenix Mountain who had come to deliver the spirit. However, Qin Yining had told Bao Hu that she was afraid that they would not be able to handle the situation if they did not have enough manpower. Hence, Bao Hu went to look for other people. Now that Bao Hu was lying on the ground, a huge amount of wealth was placed in front of them. The people from the other strongholds naturally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to reap more benefits. Thus, the two groups of people clashed. They did not bother to chase after them. Qin Yining looked anxious. She lifted the hem of her skirt and ran while checking the state of the treetops to determine her direction. When people entered the forest, the scenery around them was almost the same. If she did not have experience surviving in the wilderness in her early years, she might have run back to her original spot after running for a while. Qin Yining had thought that this group of people might fight among themselves, but she was not sure. She was only prepared for the worst. She assumed that this group of people would quickly catch up to her. Therefore, she ran for her life. As she ran, she looked for any tree holes or underground holes that she could hide in. However, the fallen leaves that had accumulated in the forest in the early years had already rotted. The ground was overgrown with weeds. As Qin Yining ran, she had to pay attention to using the wooden stick to beat the grass to scare the snake. She was afraid that she would be suddenly bitten. Not only did she have to pay attention to her pursuers, but she also had to pay attention to whether or not there were wild beasts. For a moment, she was mentally and physically exhausted. In addition, she had gone through several trials and tribulations. Her body could not be compared to a few years ago when she had not returned home. Although she was thin at that time, she had been gathering herbs and hunting in the mountains all year round. Her physical strength was excellent, but now she had experienced all kinds of torment. Her body was not good before she gave birth. She had been tormented during her pregnancy, and she had gone through so much after giving birth. She had been tortured by the Empress Dowager in the palace and then locked up. After leaving the palace, she had to go through the funeral in her fu. Before she received the news from Qin Huaiyuan, Qin Yining had been heartbroken. Her body had been ravaged beyond recognition. Therefore, after running for a while, Qin Yining gradually felt exhausted. She could not breathe. In order to guard against the bandits, she insisted on not touching their food or water. She did not drink a single drop of water the entire day. At this time, her ears were buzzing. Her vision was dark, and she could see stars spinning in front of her eyes. Right at this time, a noise came from the forest behind her. The sound of chaotic footsteps and shouts was getting closer and closer. I think I saw a white shadow. Over there. Chase. Catch her. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. She knew that someone had caught up with her. She gritted her teeth and continued running. However, physical strength was not something that could be obtained just by persevering. She felt more and more exhausted. The shouts and shouts behind her were getting closer and closer. Qin Yining's face was covered in sweat. Her dress had been torn several times by tree branches. Even her calves had been scratched several times. However, she gritted her teeth and did not stop. Even if she knew that she could not outrun these people, she would not allow herself to be caught by them. Quick, there she is. I see her. Don't run. If you run again, I'll kill you. Catch that woman and teach her a lesson. The group of people shouted and chased after her like mad dogs. Qin Yining's heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out of her throat. She ran around the tree, and soon, people caught up with her. They surrounded her from left and right. Why aren't you stopping? Let's see if you can still escape. Qin Yining's chest heaved up and down violently. She stared vigilantly at the 4 people surrounding her. She heard the sound of hurried footsteps. She guessed that more people were coming after her. Seeing stars, she did not want to give up. However, some things cannot be done just by clenching her teeth. She retreated step by step until her back was against a tree. She slowly raised her hand that was holding the hairpin. Don't come over. I'll kill whoever comes over. When the people heard this, they laughed mockingly. Kill? You won't even be able to kill a chicken. The person in front of her pounced on her. Qin Yining gritted her teeth. She wanted to dodge, but there were people on both sides of her. If not for the tree behind her, she would have been caught by them. There was no way to avoid them. Qin Yining cursed angrily in her heart. She waved the hairpin fiercely and stabbed it into the person's eyes. Right at this moment, a sharp whistling sound pierced through the air. Before Qin Yining's hairpin could pierce into that person fell to the ground with a plop. A section of the arrow's tail pierced his back and blood gushed out like a fountain. At the same time, there were a few more whoosh sounds. The people around Qin Yining cursed and screamed. They tried to dodge, but it was useless. One by one, they were shot dead on the spot. A few of them saw that the situation was not good and quickly hid behind trees. Some of them were smart enough to grab Qin Yining as a hostage. However, Qin Yining's body seemed to be protected by an invisible barrier. As soon as she stuck her head out, she was shot by an arrow. She fell to the ground and screamed. Qin Yining leaned against the tree weakly. It was still dark in front of her, and the chaotic light spots were still spinning in front of her. She couldn't see clearly who the group of people were. She still held the hairpin in her hand tightly and stared at the front with her eyes vigilantly. She did not have time to react until the other party's footsteps were right in front of her. A pair of long arms pulled her into an embrace and pressed her against a familiar chest. Chapter 825. Qin Yining's muscles were tense, and she did not let go of the hairpin. Her head was still spinning, and she was seeing stars. If it were not for her high concentration, she would have fainted if she let her guard down even a little. Pang Xiao had just pulled her into his arms when his eyebrows furrowed even more. Qin Yining was really too thin. When his large hand covered her shoulder blade, he felt a handful of bones. How much had she suffered? How did she become so thin after returning to the capital? In the past, when she was in his arms, she would melt into a puddle of spring water as long as he spoke gently to her. But now, she was like a frightened little beast. Her entire body was as tense as a rock, and it was as if the slightest provocation would cause her to go completely berserk. "Sister E, look at me." Pang Xiao held her even more slender waist with one hand and lifted her chin with the other. He bent over and moved closer to her, bringing his handsome face close to hers. "Relax. Look, I'm here to pick you up. No one wants to harm you anymore." Qin Yining's entire body was trembling. Perhaps it was because she had been standing quietly for a while, but she had recovered some of her strength and the dizziness had finally dissipated. Surrounded by a familiar aura, she instinctively felt safe, and her entire body gradually relaxed. The person in front of her was real. It was really Pang Zhishi. She was not hallucinating at the critical moment. Qin Yining raised her hand to touch Pang Zhao's face, but she realized that she was still holding onto the hairpin. The sharp end of the hairpin was facing upwards and almost poked Pang Zhao's cheek. She was so shocked that she loosened her grip and the hairpin fell from her fingertips to the ground. "Zhishi, you're here. It's me. It's me." Pang Zhao's heart ached as he rubbed the deep mark left by the hairpin on her palm. He hugged her tightly again. "Sister E, it's all my fault. I came late and made you suffer so much." Qin Yining shook her head, but she could not control her tears. They streamed down her face and soon soaked Pang Zhao's lapel. Qin Yining was very surprised. She pushed Pang Xiao away and raised her sleeve to wipe her tears, but her tears did not listen to her and kept falling. "What's wrong with me? What's there to cry about?" Pang Xiao looked down. Qin Yining's tearful face was reflected in his almond-shaped eyes. His heart ached so much that it felt like it was about to burst. "My sister, he has suffered so much. She has been wronged since we came back to the capital. It's all my fault that you have to suffer with me." He reached out his hand to wipe her tears, but the more he wiped, the more tears flowed down. At this time, Huzi and several Jinghu Wei men had tied up the bandits who had chased after Qin Yining. When Huzi saw Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's appearance, he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not say anything and brought the bandits back to the camp to wait for Pang Zhao's punishment. Only Qin Yining and Pang Xiao were left in the forest. The surroundings quieted down. The sun was setting in the west, and the forest was dim. Pang Xiao lowered her head and kissed Qin Yining's eyes carefully. "It's my fault. I caused you to suffer in the palace. Not only did I cause father-in-law to have an accident, but I couldn't protect you at the critical moment. I couldn't protect you, and my mother bullied you. Sister E hit me. It's my fault. I know you've been wronged. Don't cry. What if you cry too much? Can you hit me to vent your anger?" In Pang Zhao's eyes, Qin Yining was like a child who had been bullied outside. When no one cared about her or supported her, she could still straighten her neck and protect herself. But once she saw her family, that layer of protection was removed, and what was left was a soft heart. During this period of time, even if he was not in the capital, he knew that Qin Yining did not have a good life after leaving him. She was bullied by consort Shun, wronged by the Empress Dowager, and almost starved to death when she was locked up by Li Qitian. After that, she experienced Qin Huaiyuan's funeral. Pang Xiao knew how important Qin Huaiyuan was in Qin Yining's heart. When she was at her saddest, not only did he not protect her, but his mother also hid her when she was down. It could be seen how wronged and painful she was at that time. After the funeral, she braved the danger and sent all her family members to the south step by step. When his men first received Second Madam and Old Madam Qin in the south, Pang Xiao already understood Qin Yining's plan. Later, when he met Yao, Qinggu, Madame Ma, and the Yao clan, he understood everything. Pang Xiao arranged for people to receive the Qin family members who were rushing to the south. He could no longer hold back and quietly left the old capital with his subordinate, Jinghu Wei, and rushed all the way to the capital. He trusted Mu Jinghu and knew that Mu Jinghu would definitely protect Qin Yining's safety. However, it was best to protect his own wife. As for the rest, he could not completely let go of anyone else. In fact, Pang Xiao was more grateful than ever for his decision. If he had not arrived in time. Thinking of the scene he saw just now, Qin Yining being surrounded by 4 people with lewd expressions, Pang Xiao's heart burned with anger. Sister E, why isn't Blockhead with you? Qin Yining shook his head. Everything was fine before we set off. But when I came out this morning, young Master Mu was gone. Everyone was ready, and the date of the funeral was fixed. I had to leave, so I had to come out like this. Pang Xiao nodded. He was a little angry with Mu Jinghu. But Pang Xiao also knew Mu Jinghu's character. Mu Jinghu had always been a man of his words and was very loyal. If he had not met with an accident, Mu Jinghu would not have changed his mind at the last minute. Moreover, Mu Jinghu also knew Qin Yining's complete plan. He also knew that his sudden change of mind could bring a huge disaster to Qin Yining. But no matter what the reason was, Qin Yining was indeed in danger because of Mu Jinghu's failure to keep the appointment. Qin Yining wiped his face with his sleeve. After a long while, he adjusted his emotions and said in a hoarse voice, "Why did you suddenly come here? Wouldn't it be bad if you were caught for leaving your post without permission? You're fine. What can they do to me?" Pang Xiao stroked Qin Yining's loose hair. He took off his outer robe and draped it over Qin Yining's shoulders to cover her dress that had been torn by the tree branches. Qin Yining pinched his collar and said, "We have to be careful now. Your Majesty obviously fears you to a certain extent. If it weren't for your outstanding military achievements and outstanding talent, he would have kept you around because of his love for talent. Otherwise, he would have already put a label on you and wouldn't have done so much to test you." Pang Xiao nodded silently. Before he came, he had already discussed this matter with Xie Yu and Su Weiji. The 2 outstanding strategists also thought the same as Qin Yining. They felt that Li Qitian's actions were actually to test Pang Xiao's loyalty. Qin Yining held Pang Xiao's hand and walked towards the camp after identifying the direction. "Did Mr. Xie and Mr. Su agree to let you come out this time?" Chapter 826. Pang Xiao shook his head. "Of course I won't agree. Mr. Xie and Mr. Su both feel that since someone wants to test me, it's the wisest choice for me to stay put. Otherwise, it'll be easy for the higher-ups to find an excuse to take action against me. But you don't have to worry about this matter. Everything has been arranged before I came. Moreover, my people also said that the Yuchi Yin should have arrived in Beijing by now. That person is busy with the Yuchi Yin for the time being, so he might not have the time to care about me." Qin Yining said, "You're thinking too simply. What's the difference between simple and complicated? I only know that our family must be fine. If I can't protect you, all the power and wealth I want will be in vain." Pang Xiao stopped in his tracks and lowered his head to look at Qin Yining seriously. Although he wasn't by her side at the critical moment, he definitely wouldn't allow himself to be negligent in the slightest when it was within his power. He treated Qin Yining as a treasure that he should cherish for the rest of his life. However, ever since she married him, Qin Yining had been living a bumpy life. Her life was even worse than that of an ordinary peasant woman. How could his most beloved treasure suffer every time? Sister E, believe me, the current situation is temporary. I will definitely think of a way. I will protect you, the child, and our family. Pang Xiao carefully held Qin Yining's hand. I know that I didn't do well enough previously and made you sad. I won't do it again. Sister E, are you still willing to continue to believe in me? Qin Yining's heart was warm. Pang Xiao was an unyielding man. He was so domineering outside and made people tremble in fear. However, in front of her, he was always so gentle and careful. She knew that Pang Xiao cared so much about her feelings because she was the most important person in his heart. Qin Yining nodded, took the initiative to hug his waist, and buried her face in his chest. And this was after Qin Yining had taken the initiative to hug him. Pang Xiao cherished her so much that he protected her tightly. He was afraid that Qin Yining would blame him for suffering too much. Now that Qin Yining treated him the same as before, Pang Xiao's heart was touched even more. Such a gentle person should be well protected and let her enjoy the best happiness at this time. Qin Yining's muffled voice came from Pang Xiao's arms. How have you been these days? Where are the two children? She missed Pang Xiao and her two children so much. It was just that she had been very busy recently, especially after the incident with Qin Huaiyuan. Her mind was completely focused on this matter. After a period of shock, only then did she gradually recover. He was right in front of her, but her longing was like a flood that broke through the dam. I've always missed you guys. Pang Xiao closed his eyes and buried his face in Qin Yining's hair. How can our sister E be so good? How can she be so good? Qin Yining also closed his eyes and quietly leaned on Pang Xiao. Although there were more than 100 bandits waiting for them to deal with in the camp outside the forest, and although the Qiu family and Li Qitian's men could catch up with them at any time, the two of them enjoyed this rare moment of peace and quiet. Qin Yining even thought that if time stopped here, she wouldn't be discontented either. After a long time, Qin Yining's stomach made a rumbling sound, breaking the silence. Hungry? Yes. I haven't eaten anything all day, and I didn't dare to drink the water they gave me. Qin Yining's face was red. Pang Xiao's heart ached. She was so thin, but she still didn't dare to eat or drink. Pang Xiao didn't want to let go of the group of bandits outside the forest. Let's go out first. Let's eat first. Okay. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. She felt warmth in her palm. She lowered her head and saw Pang Xiao's big hand holding hers. He generously passed his warmth to her. Qin Yining smiled and walked side by side with Pang Xiao to the camp. But after taking a few steps, Qin Yining suddenly remembered something important. That's right. Father didn't die. Pang Xiao was surprised. What? When I was in the palace, I guessed that person would use us to test you. So I thought of a way to use Jiang Yuan to send a message to ask Xie's people to help rescue Father. When I heard the news of Father's death a while ago, I wasn't sure if Xie's people had succeeded. But since your majesty didn't find Father's body, I always had a glimmer of hope. I received a message the day before yesterday. It was written by Father himself. He is still alive and is in Xie right now. Pang Xiao was surprised and happy when she heard this. She held Qin Yining's hand and said, That's great. Sister E, you are really a female Zhuge Liang? Qin Yining smiled and said, What kind of female Zhuge Liang am I? I was so anxious at that time. You were in the south, so the distance was too far. I could only think of Xie, but at least it was done. If you hadn't arranged it in time, father-in-law would have been in danger. You were trapped in the palace at that time, but you were still able to do such a big thing. When I wasn't by your side, you supported the entire family. Sister E, you are really my pride. Pang Xiao lowered her head and planted a loud kiss on Qin Yining's forehead. Qin Yining was praised like a child, and his face turned red. All right, don't keep praising me. What I did is nothing. You were the one who really turned the world upside down in the South. The structure of the imperial court was changed by you. In fact, at that time, they wrongly accused me of wanting to poison the prince. If you hadn't put pressure on me in the South, I'm afraid I wouldn't even have the chance to explain myself. Pang Zhao's smile froze on her face and gradually turned into anger. Xiao Feishan's people have already told me about this. Don't worry, I won't let those people who want to harm you go. When the two returned to the camp, the sky was already completely dark. The group of bandits had been subdued by the Jinghu Wei. They were all tied up like dumplings and were strung together in groups of 3 to 5. In particular, the few people who were sleeping soundly on the ground in the center of the camp were the most conspicuous. Pang Zhao's face was calm, and he made a hand gesture to Huzi. He then pulled Qin Yining to the side of the carriage and put her on the carriage with his hands on her waist. He then took out his water bag and dry food and handed them to Qin Yining. Let's go somewhere else first. Later, let them pack up, and we will return to the South. I'll be your coachman. Qin Yining was very thirsty. She took Pang Zhao's water bag and fiercely drank a few mouthfuls. She looked back at the camp and asked, "Are you planning to deal with these bandits?" Pang Zhao did not plan to hide it from Qin Yining. He nodded and said, "Yes. These people have done all kinds of evil. They even wanted to do something to you. I won't let them go. Sister Eve, I won't stop you." Qin Yining smiled and interrupted Pang Zhao's explanation. "I sent my family away from the beginning and found these people because I knew that they had done all kinds of evil. I didn't want them to be ambushed by the Qiu family or that person. There's nothing wrong with the current situation." Pang Zhao let out a big sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Okay, then let's go first." Pang Zhao sat on the side of the carriage and skillfully urged the horse to drive the carriage away. Qin Yining sat in the carriage and held the water bag and steamed bun. He lowered his eyes and thought for a long time before he sighed. Soon, they were far away. Naturally, they left the begging for mercy, the screams, and the smell of blood far behind. An hour later, Huzi led Jinghu Wei and drove the carriage to catch up with Pang Zhao and Qin Yining. In an inn in a bustling part of the capital, the sound of eating melon seeds could be heard continuously. Mu Jinghu's face was dark. He was worried about the pea-sized light. Tian Jizi was still eating. He looked at Mu Jinghu with interest as he ate. After a while, Tian Jizi chuckled. "That's why Pang Zishi said that you were a blockhead. You really are a blockhead." Mu Jinghu looked at Tian Jizi. Tian Jizi said, "You're really stupid. I said that I had foreseen a calamity and needed your protection, so you had to stay by my side. But I didn't say that I couldn't go with you. Why didn't you bring me with you to follow the Qin clan?" Mu Jinghu's expression was blank. He looked at Tian Jizi with his mouth wide open. That's right. Why didn't he think of that? He had been sitting here worrying for the whole day. If he had known, he would have brought Tian Jizi with him as fast as possible. How could he be so stupid? But now, he didn't know where Qin Yining's group was. If he chased after them, would he be able to make it in time? What if something happened to Qin Yining before he went? Mu Jinghu shook his head fiercely. No. If something happened to Qin Yining, he wouldn't have the face to see Pang Zhao again. Uncle Master, did you think of this long ago? Mu Jinghu felt more upset the more he thought about it. His voice was a little stiff. Tian Jizi patted the melon seeds on his hand and laughed even more happily. Yes, I thought of it long ago. It's so interesting to see an idiot like you scratching your head. Mu Jinghu stared at Tian Jizi expressionlessly. If this wasn't his Uncle Master, he would have punched him. Tian Jizi said, "You can't blame me for this. The Qin clan's existence has always been a big variable. Everything I do would have been much smoother without her. You know that I've always wanted to kill her." Mu Jinghu's eyes widened. "Uncle Master, you didn't foresee that the Qin clan would face a calamity, so you deliberately left me behind, right? Huh, do you think I'm a god? I asked you to protect me. Do you really think you're a big shot?" Tian Jizi pursed his lips and lay down on the Kong bed. "Since you think that way, let's not go. I'm more than happy to stay here. It's so comfortable." Mu Jinghu hurriedly shook his head. "No, Uncle Master, let's go now. The sooner we leave, the less danger she will be in. I promised Peng Jishi to protect her, so I can't go back on my word. Mu Jinghu hurriedly packed his luggage. Tian Jizi lay on the Kong bed and admired Mu Jinghu's movements. He was in a good mood to see him so clumsy. Mu Jinghu packed everything properly and pulled Tian Jizi to check out of the hotel and buy 2 horses. Tian Jizi knew how to ride a horse, but he was too lazy and refused to get on. No, I don't want to ride a horse. It's too tiring. Mu Jinghu felt a headache coming on. Uncle Master, we're in a hurry to save a life. If we take a horse carriage, what will happen if we get delayed? Uncle Master, please make do with it. Their carriages are dragging and may not have gone far. We can ride fast and catch up quickly. After that, you can take the horse carriage, okay? He spoke as if he was coaxing a child. Tian Jizi had enough of playing with him, so he reluctantly nodded. Okay, let's go. He stepped on the stirrups and sat on the horse with difficulty. Chapter 8:27. Mu Jinghu's heart was burning with anxiety. Because of his stupidity and lack of flexibility, they had already been delayed for an entire day. During this period of time, he did not know if there were people from the higher-ups coming to kill him. He also did not know what danger Qin Yining would encounter if he stayed by the side of the bandits. Mu Jinghu knew his character well. He was stingy, dumb, and not smart. His character was passable, but he also had an unreliable martial uncle who was dragging him down. It was not easy for him to have such a good friend like Pang Xiao. Mu Jinghu really did not want to lose him. Moreover, a man of his word had enormous weight. Since he had promised Pang Xiao that he would protect Qin Yining, how could he go back on his word? He anxiously wanted to hurry on, but Tian Jizi's riding skills were not very good. If he was a little faster, he would wobble and almost fall off the back of the horse. Mu Jinghu had no choice. Martial uncle, why don't I carry you? Let's share a ride. You'll carry me? Tian Jizi pursed her lips in disdain. I won't. If you're really in a hurry, you can go first. I can ride slowly from behind. Mu Jinghu was angry and helpless. If he went any slower, what if something happened to him? However, looking at Tian Jizi's innocent face, Mu Jinghu was completely helpless. She was his martial uncle, and he could not hit her, scold her, persuade her, or persuade her. Mu Jinghu even suspected that Grandmaster had deliberately left to travel for so many years without any news in order to avoid martial uncle. If I could leave, I would have left long ago. Martial uncle knows that I will not leave you alone. Don't say such things in the future. Mu Jinghu sighed. Tian Jizi clicked her tongue twice. Looking at Mu Jinghu's agitated, angry, and helpless expression, she knew that if she continued to play, Mu Jinghu would very likely fly into a rage out of humiliation. Tian Jizi softened his tone and said, Don't worry. Even if someone wants to make a move, it won't be near the capital. The family Qin team is so long and there's so many people. It's impossible for them to rush. They will definitely delay a lot of time on the road. They won't be able to go far, so the possibility of something happening today is not high. Really? Mu Jinghu was skeptical. He did not believe Tian Jizi's words, but he hoped that she was telling the truth. Tian Jizi did not explain. He only snorted and said, It's up to you to believe it or not. Her nonchalant attitude made Mu Jinghu believe her, and he felt more at ease. The two of them rushed into the night. Tian Jizi's speed was getting slower and slower. She sat on the back of the horse and complained. My thighs hurt. My old waist is going to break from the bumpy ride. I'm so sleepy. Why don't we rest for a while? Sleep for a while before continuing? Mu Jinghu did not say a word. He followed closely behind Tian Jizi with a sullen face and mercilessly whipped Tian Jizi's horse. The speed suddenly increased, and Tian Jizi almost fell. Aya, you bastard! Tian Jizi cursed, and Mu Jinghu pulled a long face. The two of them rushed forward for a while and then slowed down at the same time. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. Tian Jizi suddenly looked serious and said, Something might have happened. Mu Jinghu's heart almost jumped out of his chest. It can't be the Qin clan, right? He knew that Qin Yining did not have a single follower. His companions were all bandits. But if the bandits really killed someone, the smell of blood would not be so strong. The further they went, the stronger the smell of blood in the air. Mu Jinghu became more and more nervous. The smell of blood from one person's death could not be so strong. Could it be that the whole group was slaughtered? Could it be that your majesty made a move? Mu Jinghu was anxious, so he increased his speed. Tianjizi was furious. He said in a low voice, "You better be careful. What's the hurry?" But Mu Jinghu's horse had already galloped far away. After making a turn, Mu Jinghu slowed down. Under the pitch-black night, a bright moon hung high in the sky. The cold moonlight clearly illuminated the hell-like scene in the wilderness. Near and far, there were corpses everywhere. Not to mention rivers of blood, but this scene was really too spectacular. The pungent smell of blood made people uncomfortable. Even Tianjizi and Mu Jinghu felt a burst of nausea in their hearts. "Martial uncle, this..." Mu Jinghu suddenly stopped talking. He looked in the direction of the forest defensively. From the deep ditches by the roadside, in the grass, and in the forest, more than 100 people were rushing over with weapons in their hands. The weapons in their hands shone with a cold light under the moonlight, making people feel timid just by looking at them. Mu Jinghu's heart skipped a beat. He held on to Tianjizi's reins tightly. The other party was obviously well-trained. They were different from the usual guards. Each of them had an awe-inspiring aura and concealed a murderous intent. Tianjizi clicked his tongue and said, "This is bad." As he said that, he urged his horse to move closer to Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu pursed his lips. Just as he was about to open his mouth to ask, he saw the encirclement separating. A very familiar person walked out. Mu Jinghu could not recall where he had seen this person before. His brows gradually furrowed. Mu Jinghu could not recall this person, but this person recognized him at a glance. "Catch him. He is one of Prince Zhongshuan's men." "Yes." More than 100 people immediately responded. They waved their weapons and rushed forward. Mu Jinghu finally grasped a thought that flashed through his mind. Wasn't this person the one who had followed Qin Yining to Jianchuan City and caused havoc in the Qiu family? So these were the Qiu family's troops. In that case, the hundreds of corpses on the ground were all the Qiu family's doing? Did they kill Qin Yining as well? Mu Jinghu gritted his teeth. He was unable to restrain his anger. He pulled out the flexible sword that was coiled around his waist. There was a buzzing sound in the air. The flexible sword that was originally hanging by its side suddenly became as hard as steel in Mu Jinghu's hand. "Whoever dares to come near, don't blame me for being merciless." Mu Jinghu's aura was too frightening. The Qiu family's troops were so frightened that they slowed down their footsteps. Mu Jinghu saw the opportunity. He pulled Tianjizi's reins and rushed out with her. The two of them rode on horseback. Their main goal was to break out of the encirclement. The speed of their horses was naturally not slow. When the other party was unprepared, they gained a temporary advantage. However, the people sent by the Qiu family this time were more well-trained. Mu Jinghu originally wanted to take Tianjizi by surprise and rush out. But now he was stuck like a sticky cake. Moreover, the Qiu family did not care about the rules of the Jianghu. More than 100 people actually took turns to fight with Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu's eyes were frosty. When he thought that Qin Yining might have been killed by the Qiu family, he was filled with resentment. He really did not know how to explain this to Pang Xiao. In a fit of anger, Mu Jinghu rushed out even more ruthlessly. The Qiu family did not show any signs of weakness. They all went to chop off the legs of the horses. Mu Jinghu dodged in time. But that was not the case for Tianjizi. She was not an expert at riding a horse. Now that she was surrounded by so many people and was exhausted from rushing for half the night, she could not do anything when she saw that someone was coming to chop off her horse's leg. Tianjizi cursed Qin Yining in her heart. She should have killed him back then. All of her predictions were very accurate. It could be said that she was confident and had the ability to predict everything in the world. But when it came to Qin Yining, everything would be out of her control and become unpredictable. Qin Yining was the biggest variable. At this time, Tianjizi's heart was shocked and scared. Could it be that the disaster that she thought she had escaped had once again happened unexpectedly because of Qin Yining? The horse's leg was chopped off, and it fell to the ground with a loud neigh. Tianji screamed in fright as he fell down with his eyes closed. Before he landed, he had already imagined himself being hacked to death by a flurry of blades in his mind. In the nick of time, Mu Jinghu forcefully withstood the other party's sword and extended her arm to catch Divine Predictor Z. In any case, she helped Divine Predictor Z break free from the falling force. He fell to the ground with his limbs spread out. Fortunately, he didn't fall to his death. But at this time, everyone was attacking together. Mu Jinghu dodged the incoming sword, and Tianji was once again exposed to the enemy's sword. "Stop it, or I'll kill her." Qiu Feipu strode forward and lifted Tianji up by the collar with one hand, while the other hand grabbed a sword and pressed it against Tianji's neck. A line of blood flowed down because he could not control his strength. "Stop, stop, stop, stop." Tianji was so frightened that he screamed miserably. Mu Jinghu turned around and saw that Tianji was taken down. His heart went cold. It's over. It's all over now. He originally had the ability to take Tianji and escape from here, but Tianji was caught at this time. He could not ignore her life and death. Could it be that this was the bloody disaster that she had foreseen? Still not stopping, Qiu Feipu sneered. "I know you are the Prince Zhongshuan's bodyguard, and I also know that you are Qiu Feishan's husband. As long as you surrender, I won't kill you. Otherwise, I'll enter right now." Mu Jinghu's heart beat faster, and the hand holding the sword tightened and loosened and tightened again. It seemed that Qiu Yuanming had arranged spies outside. Otherwise, how would he know that Qiu Feishan married him? Tianji had a knife on her neck, and the stinging wound stimulated her emotions even more. "You still don't agree? Do you want to take the opportunity to kill me?" Her shout finally made Mu Jinghu make a decision. He could not let his martial uncle die. Otherwise, wouldn't he be betraying his sect? Mu Jinghu threw away the soft sword in his hand. The Qiu family's men of sacrifice immediately stepped forward and tied Mu Jinghu's arms behind his back. They took a rope and tied him up like a dumpling. Tianji was kicked and fell to the ground with a cry. She was also caught and tied together with Mu Jinghu. Qiu Feipu looked around and said, "It's good to have these two people back. Let's go." His men all agreed and took Mu Jinghu and Tianji away. Mu Jinghu's reaction was slow, but he immediately reacted. Just now, the man said that it was good to bring them back to report. That meant that these people did not complete their initial mission. They must have been sent to rob the family Qin's funeral procession, but they did not complete it. So the mountain bandit corpses all over the ground. Perhaps it was arranged by His Highness? Was Qin Yining still alive, or had he been killed by Li Qitian's people? Mu Jinghu was puzzled, and could only be sent to a stronghold of the Qiu family near Jianchuan with Tianji. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.